This summer, the world's largest arena for sports and collectibles is back in New York City. Catch the return of Fanatics Fest from June 20th to the 22nd, where you could share the floor with the biggest names in sports. That means appearances by over 500 iconic athletes and celebrities from your favorite teams, including current and former New York Knicks legends, plus live panels and podcasts, exclusive merch collabs, a trading card arena with 200 of the biggest dealers in the biz, and way, way more. Get your tickets today at fanaticsfest.com and get 20% off your ticket price with promo code Knicks Film School 20. Again, get tickets at fanaticsfest.com and use promo code Knicks Film School 20 for a 20% discount. When the world's greatest athletes gather in New York City, don't miss it. All right, welcome to a Knicks Film School emergency live stream. I'm sorry, I'm laughing at the promo video of me trying to say the words Fanatics Fest without stumbling over myself. Did you catch that?
I was thinking it too. I didn't want to say it, but if we're going to talk about it, John, I mean, enunciation and diction, that's...
What's the Seinfeld thing where someone couldn't say some words? I'm going to try to think of it. We're getting off to a wonderful start. All right. Yeah. Hey there, Knicks fans. It's an emergency live stream, 7:36 p.m. We're a little late on the emergency. That's my fault. Don't blame anybody. Blame me. It's gymnastics day, and that's it. Nothing gets in the way of gymnastics day here in the Macri household. But Tom Thibodeau and I guess Leon Rose and James Dolan short tried. So we've had now several hours to digest the news. I guess about 5 hours to digest the news. It seems like there was a lot of tweets and things coming out in the immediate aftermath that seems to have died down. I guess at the top, we should just maybe, if someone's tuning in, someone was at work, whatever, maybe didn't have a chance to read every single tweet that was sent out, start with maybe a little recap, and then I'm going to toss it to you because I kind of gave my opinion, my overarching opinion before, and I'll obviously, repeat some of that throughout this. But the decision was made to relieve Tom Thibodeau of his duties as head coach. After what I believe Ian Begley described as maybe not the most traditional exit interviews, in terms of the fact that James Dolan was a part of the exit interviews with the players. And I don't know if it was explicitly reported, but it certainly seemed implied, at least as I read it, that some of those conversations with the players centered around the head coach. And the Knicks immediately, and this is the Knicks putting this messaging out, because when every single Knicks beat reporter and prominent media person tweets out the exact same thing about sources said the Knicks felt it was time for a new voice in the organization. Well, guess what? That's Knicks PR basically sending the text to the group there and saying this is what we're going with. So yeah, needed a new voice. That's what they're going with. We've heard reporting. I mean, our own Chris Persianen talked about how, or tweeted out a little while ago, that there was a push within the organization to get Thibodeau to change the starting lineup, I think during the Boston series. And that, it ultimately took Josh Hart going to him and kind of bringing that up to get him to make the change ultimately in the Indiana series. It is abundantly clear at this point, and I mean, this was clear 4 years ago or 3 years ago, whenever 21-22 season was, that there are people in the organization that just are not in regular alignment with how Tom Thibodeau goes about his business, in terms of his kind of sticking to his guns in terms of lineups, in terms of limiting rotations. I think we heard, I forget where I saw it. Maybe if you remember, Jeremy, or anybody who's in the here in behind the scenes, some report recently that like, hey, maybe there was more of an opportunity to get, like Tyler Kolek some minutes during the regular season. I'm sure there was similar thought to, with Shamet and Delon Wright. Why was it in game 3 of the Eastern Conference Finals that those guys were taken out of mothballs? So clearly there was a lot of misgivings, or there were many misgivings about the way that Tom Thibodeau went about his business as head coach. Which is to say that I don't think this was about some sort of mandate. It was about, oh, you got to make it this far. No, I think this was a qualitative decision more than it was a quantitative decision. And frankly, it would have been asinine if it was a quantitative decision, because if they gave this team a finals or bust, mandate, that would have been silly. This had to be qualitative. And it also had to be qualitative, not just based on the last month and a half, but based on not only even the entire season, based on the entire larger way that this thing has gone, much of which was very good. But I don't want to say that it's pretty obvious that this has been heading this way for a while, but I think you saw Steve Popper and maybe another beat reporter or two tweet in the immediate aftermath, like, Tibbs is not surprised by this. Like, there have been whispers about this for a while. And I guess I did record a video earlier in which I said I was not surprised by this, and I kind of laid out some reasons why I wasn't surprised. The one thing that I didn't say in that video was that I'm not someone, people have more sources than me, God knows, but just kind of, again, reading the tea leaves and just kind of keeping your ear to the ground and listening to what Ian says, listening to what Fred says, picking up what little tidbits I've kind of heard, along the way. Like, this, I don't think this should have come out of the blue for anyone. I understand there were some people today that were like, I'm stunned. I'm shocked that they would actually do this. To which I guess my response would be like, what? I guess why? Why are you stunned? Because if you're stunned, your rationale for being stunned has to be, well, this team just made it to the Eastern Conference. How does a team that hasn't made it to the Eastern Conference Finals in 25 years fire the coach that just took them to the Eastern Conference Finals? Especially since this president of basketball operations has been, by and large, the most even-keeled individual to be a part of this franchise in our memories, right? Leon, I think I described Leon Rose as that. And to me, go to the other side of it, which is that from day one, from the day Leon Rose hired Tom Thibodeau to be his head coach, it was very clear what the mandate was. The mandate was to win. And if you are not winning, if you are not doing enough winning here, then that's the standard. Like, loyalty, I get loyalty. Dante DiVincenzo got traded last summer. Like the AT&T commercial. Come on. Like, once that happened, to me, that was a very clear, to say nothing of, the trade sending out Obi Toppin and Emmanuel Quickly and like other, Julius Randle, like other guys who have been a part of this thing and big parts of this thing. So, the notion that Leon was going to continue to do something that he did not believe was in the best interest of his team reaching a championship level just because that person just took them to a certain, and then when you add in the extra layer of the potential that there were people in the organization who may have felt that they won the Boston series despite Tom Thibodeau being the coach, because the lineup change that they felt should have come around earlier didn't come until it was too late. I think when you add it all up, this, again, to me, it was not surprising. Maybe I should say it was not surprising. It was certainly not shocking. It was maybe a little surprising. So on that note, I guess maybe I'll just ask you to start. Were you surprised? Were you shocked? And then what are your overarching thoughts of the move?
Peek behind the curtain. Andrew and I sat down last week and we mapped out meticulously how cap or no cap and recordings, when they would be released, all of that. And the plan that was hatched was, let's not record until Tuesday evening, as you know, John. And the reason being, I just thought in the event that they talk about the head coach and then they make a decision, would hate to record something, even if we just ignore Tom Thibodeau. And how could we possibly do that? How could we record content involving the team and not talk about the head coach at all? So I thought Tuesday afternoon, all right, this cap or no cap, ready to go. Feeling good about it. Had the page open just to put the finishing touches on it. And then bam. Not at a bio, but the news from Sean's.
No illegal screens here. This was
no.
Well, I don't know.
Not.
Maybe it was akin to
it could be. It depends who you ask, maybe. But
depends who you ask.
The life is short. Windows to contend for a title are even shorter. Yeah. The way that the Knicks are operating, this is their window. And if there is anything or anyone that comes in between what you want and where you are, you need to figure out a way to either get around it or get through it. And we talked about quite a bit on the last podcast, and we talked about a successful season. We talked about the first Eastern Conference Finals in 25 years. We talked about back-to-back 50-plus win seasons for the first time since the mid-90s. We talked about the success from the results. And the thing that you and I were harmonious about was that while the results were good, the process a lot less so.
Questionable. At best.
Exactly. And I always feel like the cooking analogy for how a team is made up, where it's that the front office had money to spend, whether you want to call it, salary picks. They had currency to bring in high quality ingredients. And perhaps the methods to getting the great dish were questionable, but at the end of the day, they got a great dish. And yet it's hard not to think, could that dish have been even greater? Could that meal have been even more delicious? And there are pros and cons. Of course, there are always going to be. There's the fact that we can acknowledge that Tom Thibodeau helped take this team from truly part of the darkest times that we have seen, or at least close to it. And now we are talking about an Eastern Conference Finals appearance, and it's still not enough. And I don't mean that as admonishment. I mean that factually. It still was not enough. And it reminds me of when the Yankees fired Joe Girardi. After the Yankees went to the American League, the ALCS Championship Series, the American League Championship Series.
He did win a title with them, right?
He did.
Okay.
And that's where the difference is, where Girardi won in 2009. But even later, I believe it was 2017, where he did so well and the Yankees did well. They did better than people would have thought. And it wasn't enough. And the question I had at the time was, why was it not enough? Because we could talk about the strategy of it all. We could talk about how the front office communicates with the head coach. At the end of the day, we, fans, media, everyone is not truly in that locker room. So it's always been hard for me to criticize coaching just because it's easier. And you could talk about how players are used. You could talk about how they can be impacted by coaching. But it's one of those things where unless you are in an organization, sometimes it's harder to speak on it. And yet something never clicked. Something never felt right. Karl Anthony Towns this year. But there was bad process other times, or at least things that we would call stubborn, and you would work around it because the results spoke for themselves. And it's very difficult when you pool your resources to build a team that you believe should be better and is very good, but should be better than it is. And it's fair to question if how those pieces, which should on paper gel, why they are not gelling in reality, why there are miscommunications, why some players sink and some swim. And a lot of what Tibbs embodies is what is important, right? I mean, there are no questions about defensive tenacity and rim protection and certain offensive principles, but perhaps the X's and O's just don't line up. Perhaps having someone who is not as malleable and feeling like you can't intervene at any point is too difficult for a front office that has a few seasons to really do what no front office has done in New York from a basketball standpoint for men's basketball since 1973. And that is win a championship. And if Tom Thibodeau is the thing that gets in the way of that, and I'm not saying he's the only thing, this just to say merely changing the coach and keeping the roster completely intact is an important thing. There's going to be more to that. There always is. But I applaud this ownership front office for actually looking at this and saying, we appreciate everything that's happened. And yet, it's not good enough. And we're not in the business of not good enough. This is about legacy. This is about statement. This is about everything. This is not merely, well, we gave it our best shot. You only get so many of them. And the Knicks, as close as they were, whether it was they should have gotten this far or not, is up for debate based on how they game planned. They were so close. And we could be talking about the Knicks in the finals. And we're not. And that doesn't mean that that's the reason that Tibbs should have gotten fired or not. But it hurts to know that this team could have gone further. And we'll always be left wondering with what ifs. And that could happen with any coach. It absolutely could. But this isn't any coach. This is Tom Thibodeau. And the Knicks have gotten to a point, and clearly this is reverberated throughout the team where this decision was made. This was not a spur of the moment thing. And for something had to have happened for Jalen Brunson to advocate, of course, for Tom Thibodeau, the man who held him when he was a baby, for Leon Rose, for Tom Thibodeau to be his guy. Something must have happened in order for the Knicks to go from the position of, yeah, it sounds like they want him back, they're comfortable, to the Knicks are now looking for a new head coach. What those conversations are, we don't know.
Well, maybe something happened. I don't know. You said a lot there, and I want to try to get to all of it because that was I largely agree with a lot of it. I was gonna say pushback. I don't even know if it's pushback. Is gonna sound odd. The result of this season should not be the thing that is dictating whether or not Tom Thibodeau has a job today. And I say that specifically in light of game one. And look, if there are people out there who want to put game one on Tibbs, that's fine. We could talk until we're blue in the face. And I frankly don't want to talk about who's really mostly at fault for game one because I never want to relive that memory for as long as I live. If they win game one, there is I think, my 2 cents, there's a strong possibility they're playing in the finals tomorrow. Now, Mike Malone, we know from reports of the season, now he was eventually fired, the season that the Nuggets won the championship, he was going to be out if they didn't win the championship that year. It was almost a certainty. Mike Budenholzer, it was beyond the certainty that he was going to be out if the Bucks did. Now, both of those guys, again, eventually got fired by their respective organizations after they won a title. So, to me, this fits in with those firings because those championships that those coaches won essentially just served as a stay of execution where there were strong-minded people in the organization that felt this person is not the person that we want moving forward as the head coach of our team, which, by the way, what do all these things have in common? Head coaches have a short lifespan. And especially head coaches that are good, because if you're a good head coach, you probably are some degree of an A-type personality. Like you need to command the respect of multi-millionaires in a room. And it's why like the fourth longest head coach. Actually, excuse me, because Pop's no longer a coach. The third longest head coach in the league at this point is, oh my God, I'm not gonna. It's someone that's been in their job for like, oh, it's you know who it is? I think pretty sure it's Billy Donovan. I'm fairly certain it's Billy Donovan. Andrew, if you want to double check that after Spo and Kerr.
That's a head scratcher. Yeah,
I mentioned Spo and Kerr. Spo and Kerr have jobs today, as it should. I'm pretty sure both of them were named among the 75 greatest or the 15 greatest coaches of all time when the NBA did its 75th anniversary shindig. Both of those coaches, certainly members of the fan base, their respective fan bases, have massive issues with them. Issues with all sorts of things. We don't have to go through them right now, but just go search Warriors Twitter and Heat Twitter if you're interested.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not, but I promise you it exists. And I would even go so far as to say with Kerr this year, with the whole Kuminga thing, there were maybe even issues, beyond just the fan base having quibbles with this, that, the other thing. But the larger point is, and the reason that those two coaches have been in their jobs for as long as they have, besides the fact that they won a goodly number of championships, is the fact that those organizations are, at the end of the day, through the ups and downs, through this decision that may have gone well or that decision that may have not gone so well, they are believers in the approach of those head coaches. I think today is about the fact that the New York Knicks no longer believed in the approach of how Tom Thibodeau ran this team, far more than about any X's and O's or specific lineups or specific rotation decisions. It was about how he went about his business in doing things ultimately his way. And he would take input, I'm sure. But if he didn't believe the thing that you were suggesting was something that could help them win, he was just not going to do it. And it didn't matter. Nothing else mattered to him because he had the evidence that he had spent the time finding and compiling and the whole thing. And if what you were suggesting didn't go along with that evidence, well, then you were shit out of luck. A couple other things, because, you mentioned gets in the way, like he may have gotten in the way. And I think that's such an interesting way to think about this. Is this decision being made because they felt that Tom Thibodeau got in the way of them winning a championship? Or did they just feel like there is someone else out there who can help them get to a championship more? It goes back to the concept, and the two words that have been circling in my mind, not only today, but as I've been thinking about this the last several days, are the concept of deserve versus earn. Did Tom Thibodeau deserve to get fired today based on his track record, based on how far he took them this year, based on really anything you want to look at? I'd be hard pressed to find anyone who would say, look at his 5 years, look at even this year and say, oh yeah, he deserved to get fired. That's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is, did he earn the right to keep his job for another year? Did he do enough to make the organization believe that he can, again, to go back to the term I said a minute ago, help them, aid them, be an asset to getting them to a championship level? And I then think about the reasons, and you mentioned this, the reasons he was hired originally versus the reasons to potentially retain him now. When he was hired, you needed to find the absolute hardest ass, this is the way things are going to go. And if you don't like it, you could get the F out of my locker room because I don't got time for you. I don't care who you are. I don't care how much you make. You're going to do things my way. And yet at the same time, he also was smart and he knew when to create exceptions. Everybody hear that? Loud and clear. Oh, Julius, by the way, come over here. Yeah, all that stuff about defense and having to defend every play like it's your last, that don't work. That doesn't really apply to you. But you know what? It worked because he got an all-NBA season out of Julius Randle, and he got the team to 41 wins, and the rest is history. Those reasons for hiring Tom Thibodeau back then, I don't know that any of them exist today. Because if you look at it, The downside risk of hiring a different sort of head coach then was that this thing never gets on track. And we're not talking about any kind of success because the thing just would have continued to lollygag along and be the most dysfunctional organization in professional sports. At this point, you have clearly a locker room where it's a lot of professionals in there. Again, they didn't see eye to eye maybe this year, but like this thing is kind of a well-oiled machine now. And the things that caused you to hire Tibbs back then, again, those are not, or maybe not, I don't want to say not, but they are not nearly as high up the list on your considerations for whether this coach should still have the job today. And it's a different list of considerations, the things that you just alluded to. Last thing I'll say, look, you said you don't want to congratulate them just yet, right? The Knicks for doing that. Congratulate the Knicks. Like you said, like I commend them, but you also wanted to ease up on praising the Knicks yet because there's still another side to this coin. They need to make a hire.
Sure. No, the way that I see it, I do congratulate is such an odd word.
Not congratulate. Like, good job. You did the hard thing, right? It was ballsy of you to do this.
They were in a long-term relationship.
Yes.
And they found the courage to say enough is enough.
Which is hard.
Which is really difficult.
It's hard whether you have a girlfriend or a boyfriend.
It's hard to do that.
Yeah.
And they did it.
Yes, they did it.
And that takes guts.
It does take guts.
I appreciate them for doing that.
Even considering the guts that it took because of Thibodeau's accomplishments, because of the personal relationships, all of those sorts of things. Shit, I haven't, you know what just popped into my head for the first time, literally, and talks about my head's all over the place. What happens to Rick Brunson? Well, I guess we'll get to that.
We'll figure it out.
I still would argue that, generally speaking, the three easiest things to do in sports are to tank, to put the backup quarterback in, and to fire the coach. When you go through the list of things that could potentially, change the direction of your franchise, I think those three things are the things that come to mind for me as the easiest three things. Logistically speaking, it is very easy to fire a head coach. You don't the Phoenix Suns, I'm sure today would very much like to fire Bradley Beal, but they can't do that because he's under contract and he has a no trade clause. And we could go through a list of other players. Tom Thibodeau, they're going to pay him a lot of money for the next 3 years, but it was logistically easy. Now comes the hard part to me. And I don't disagree with what you're saying, and I do commend them for doing this because I do think it showed guts and commitment and the whole thing. So my wife just texted me, "You better not be breaking up with me." Maybe it's been 10 years. I think that ship has sailed. I do think that, and to your point, in this instance, the easy thing to do would have been to keep Tibbs, because then they wouldn't have had to deal with any of this. And there would have been obviously a subset of Knicks fans, maybe even larger than a subset of Knicks fans, who would have been clutching their pearls at the fact, oh my God, you're going to have Tom Thibodeau back for another year. Around the league, nobody would have said boo. Now everybody's like, oh, really? You dysfunctional organization for 2 decades, you're going to fire the most successful head coach that you've had after this stint that he had, and in light of the 20 years that came before that? Oh boy, we can't wait to see what you got in store next. And boy, oh boy, putting aside how that person is in the locker room, how that person is with X's and O's, how that person is with any sorts of things, the pressure is going to be on that person's shoulders, the likes of which we have not seen for a New York Knicks head coach since I don't know. Since before I've probably been watching the team. Andrew just put in the chat, Don Nelson. I thought about Don. That was the first name that popped into my head. I'm like, yes, but Don Nelson also gave no fucks about anything. As shout out to Blood in the Garden, which Chris Herring writes eloquently in that chapter about that. And part of the reason why Don Nelson didn't last as head coach is because he gave no fucks about anything. But again, neither here nor there. And we saw it with JJ Redick, and JJ Redick did a good job the whatever, who did he lose to? The Minnesota series aside. He did a really good job. Really good job. He got, I think, Coach of the Year votes in his first season as head coach. There were some dicey moments in terms of media reaction to some of the things he was doing, in terms of like, there were some clips going around where it's like, oh my God, this is the guy they brought in to coach this team like this. And JJ, to his credit, withstood that, and he had the mental fortitude, and he rode the wave. But JJ Redick's also been through a lot. He's a member of the media. He withstood it. And that was after the freaking Lakers couldn't get out of their own way with head coaches for years and years and years and years. That's not going to be the situation now, because the Knicks had, for all of our misgivings, a sure thing. And so whoever they hire next, again, God help that person during the first 3-game losing streak. And there's going to be a 3-game losing streak. I would bet money on it. Unless they go find their Steve Kerr and the Knicks win. How many games first did Kerr win his first year? Was it 60? Did he win 73 games his first year? I forget.
It was not 73 because I was, but even so, because they won the
67 games. Thank you, GMAC.
Okay. I'm trying to figure out where to go from here.
Sorry, I threw a lot at
you. No, that's fine. Okay. You talk about pressure. You talk about God help the next head coach and the pressure that person's under. But that would imply that Tibbs was not under the pressure that he should be. That implies that next year, if Tibbs is still head coach, that there's not more pressure on him to get the job done than there is on this first, on whoever is coaching this team next.
Can I just?
And I think
can I interject?
Just because I that in mind.
No, the pressure would have been tenfold.
Mm-hmm.
I think we know enough about Tibbs that he didn't care about the pressure at all. It didn't faze him. It didn't impact anything he was doing. That's my read from the outside looking in. Maybe I'm wrong.
We just don't know that.
Maybe you're right. We don't know that.
If he felt he was coaching with his job on the line, dating back to earlier in the playoffs, to the idea that completely doesn't faze him. We're human. He's human.
Yes.
Like, just the idea that it would have been completely, it's fine, whatever. I'll deal with that later. Hard to imagine. Side note, I love how you censor yourself and then drop the same word. It's amusing to me.
I don't even realize when I do it.
I know it's just fun. As someone listening to it, it's fun to take it all in. You at one point said something about the process, and you said, yes, this isn't even really about the X's and O's. And I would say, well, we've got some great people who are going to be coming onto this podcast who can talk at a higher level about that.
Yes.
But saying this isn't about X's and O's would be like, okay, well, let's take out a significant chunk of the argument for why there's this change going on in the first place.
I shouldn't have said that. It's not as much to me about specific X's and O's more than it is about general, again, approach, philosophy, and like inflexibility from this is the way I view the game, and I'm not going to divert from that because I've been doing this for 40 or 50, whatever the hell long Tibbs has been coaching, 40 plus years.
How do you separate the two? Because to me, they're completely intertwined.
I separate the two because, like, I don't think, like, 86 possessions, deuce with Brad plus the starters, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's one of the reasons that Tibbs got fired explicitly.
Sure.
I think the fact that if it was ever suggested to him, hey, Tom, we got this center who could shoot threes, the self-proclaimed greatest shooting big man of all time. Maybe we should try some more 5-out stuff. And Tibbs' response, okay, yeah, I'll take a look at it. And that was it. That's more the thing than the actual. Maybe we're getting into semantics here, but I
don't think we are, though.
Okay.
Like, I understand where you're coming from, but I don't think it is quite semantics, because maybe it's not. When you look at, you could say, well, it shouldn't be about the fact that he didn't even try this. Well, what about the lineup that he did keep trying, right?
Yeah.
From January 1st until the end of the season, there were 50 lineups in the NBA that played at least 55-man lineups that played at least 100 minutes. And the number one lineup was actually not the starting five, but it would have been if Jalen Brunson had not been injured. It was the Pistons lineup. And that had a net rating from January 1st to the end of the season of 7.9. Then it's the Knicks. The starting five, we all know, negative 1.4. Then some positive ones. Then the next negative one is a negative 0.5, which was with the Nuggets. What happened there? Mike Malone was fired. Then you have the Rockets, negative 7.9. What happened? They got bounced pretty harshly in the first round. More positives. Then you have another negative one. It's the Kings at negative 0.9. They, of course, did not do very well. Then you have the Kings again at negative 8.4, a different lineup, basically. Hey, we'll be the Bulls of the West. Didn't work, clearly. And then you keep going through positive ones, including a positive Knicks one, which was Deuce McBride, Mikal Bridges, Josh Hart, OG Anunoby, and Karl Anthony Towns. Just those 25 alone. When you group the New York Knicks and see another positive one, and then keep doing the same thing over again, and we could talk about stubbornness, but it's also purely just if you are, I know what I'm doing here, and what you're doing is hurting you actively. So that's not just stubbornness, that's malpractice.
Well,
and that to me is a huge factor because yes, we can talk about, look at the comebacks that the Knicks made and how they got to the position that they were in the Eastern Conference Finals. They hit the right buttons. He deserves credit for that. It's also a question, and we can, heap whatever helpings of the blame pie that we want. We can slice up however we'd like. But the Pistons series being as close as it was a combination of the Pistons are a team that should be taken more seriously than people think. And what are the Knicks doing where they cannot separate themselves in such a way where this is even a stressful 6-game series?
I don't think we're actually disagreeing, because
we're not.
What I, again, is sticking with the starting five. Is that, could you call that an X's and O's thing? Sure. I look at the reasons behind why he kept the same starting five. And the reasons why he kept the same starting five, I would bet any amount of money, are steeped in his philosophy. Which I'll tell you, anytime you ask him a question about, well, Tibbs, this isn't working or that's not working, are you going to make a change? And his philosophy is, are you giving it the proper amount of effort, and are you executing properly? And I guarantee you, he would go through film session after film session, watching that starting five fumble the bag time and time and time again. And he would point out, oh, there's an error in execution. 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 Oh, by the way, you're also not trying hard enough. And that was it. And until he saw that the execution and effort was where he deemed it acceptable, and at that point the starting five was still not working, he was going to stick with it. And now he will never see that, because that is his approach. His approach is not going to be, well, for reasons just unknown, this thing isn't working. Maybe it's because they don't like each other very much. Maybe it's because, I don't know, the temperature in the arena is not right. It doesn't matter. The thing wasn't working for however many months. And there's a lot of head coaches that would have looked at that, and that would have been enough for them. They would have said, okay, we got the playoffs coming up here, baby. I don't have how much time left. I got to figure something else out. And he didn't. He kept waiting for Godot. And Godot finally came. It's not the Godot that he wanted today. So again, I don't think we're disagreeing. If you want, if it's X's and O's plus approach, whatever you want to say, but to me, these are two things that are one and the same. You cannot separate. Maybe that's the better way I should have phrased it. You cannot separate the X's and O's from the approach.
Sure. But then if the approach is wrong, then that means the X's and O's also was wrong too.
Well, see, but that's,
they're linked in such a way.
But again, that's when we could get to a whole different thing, because you can't just say as a blanket statement, oh, Tibbs is inflexible, because he's not. He came out at the beginning of the Boston series and they were switching everything. That was an X's and O's change, and it contributed greatly to them winning the series. We could point to some other stuff as well, but that was an instance where Tibbs saw, in his estimation, what he needed to see before that series ever started to know, if I go about this other way, we are going to lose. Obviously, going into the Pacers series, he did not see enough in the starting five. And again, I feel I feel funny putting the loss of the Pacers series on the fact that it started with the starting five for 2 games, when there's other things you could point to in that series. But like, that's what people want to latch onto. That's what people want to latch onto. I think there's a lot of things. That's one of many things, and that's the point.
Margin of error. But I think another thing to keep in mind as well, not just in the locker room, but outside of the locker room, the Knicks, as Shams also reported, are going to be aggressive this summer. And there could very easily be, and this is me completely speculating here, but there could be a world where there are players that they are interested in acquiring who might be resistant to being coached by Tom Thibodeau.
Sure.
And how does that impact? And that may not be their choice. Of course, they'd have to be traded in this case, but we know how back channeling and all those things work. There's a world where it's almost basically not a facelift, because that would just imply it's cosmetic to a degree. It's deeper than that. But being able for the Knicks to control their own narrative now of, we're hiring this coach, whoever that will be, and this is what our vision and what our plan is and how we can incorporate it. Because the lack of flexibility, which we're talking about, I think played a significant factor. How you do not utilize the best version of Karl Anthony Towns will still surprise me. And yet, I recognize that he coached Cat in a way where he was an all-NBA player. It's just hard not to think, what with the other matching could have elevated Cat to an even higher level. He brought out so many great qualities, but could there have been more? Could you keep what you've got and expand on that even further? Because Cat did an incredible job in the playoffs. I mean, he had his moments, of course, but it happens to everyone where no one is going to be perfect. It's just not going to be the case. But whether it was in-house or the call was coming from outside the house, the voices were heard and things changed.
I mean, obviously there are players who did not like Tibbs, and I mean, look, go read McElbridge's fucking quotes from when were they? February? Like, doesn't take a rocket scientist, folks. And he ain't the only one. I know that for a fact. But you bring up Karl Anthony Towns, perfect, entryway into the discussion of how much this really did have to do with X's and O's. And on that note, I think it's probably a good time to bring up another member of our faculty.
Hi, everybody. How was your guys' day? How was your guys' day?
I'm trying to think where exactly. What time did the Shams tweet come?
Around 2:40, 2:39 to be exact, is when the tweet happened. And if I can just reiterate what Jeremy said, thank you to the New York Knicks for doing this before you guys had already recorded something. Also, tomorrow is Mrs. Claudio's birthday, my wife. So thank you for not doing this tomorrow too. Yeah. You want to talk about sacrifices that our significant others have made? My goodness, was I not going to be able to get out of anything that is planned tomorrow? So thank you for doing this today and not 24 hours later. We are going to add a bit of a panel throughout the rest of this show. Not to interrupt completely, but you know where else where you can find a panel, fellas? You can find it in a couple weeks at Fanatics Fest in NYC. Shout out to the fine folks over at Fanatics Fest. All you have to do is use the link in the description to use to get 20% off your tickets. Today and tomorrow are your last days to do so. You can go for 1 day, you can go for 3 days. Use promo code Knicks Film School 20 and use the KFS specific link to get 20% off your entire purchase. come hang out with us at Fanatics Fest NYC, June 20th to the 22nd in the Javits Center. And on that note, John, I think there's another person that we'd like to hear from today. Welcome to the stage, Mr. DJ Zullo. DJ, hi, how are you? How was your day?
It was good. You were the first call I made after I saw the tweet. I'm like, Andrew, what's the plan?
Where is he?
When I say the tweet came out at 2:39 and the phone call came at 2:41, and then Jeremy's call, because we called each other too, at 2:42, I was like, guys, you got to give me more than 3 minutes. I'm reacting to this too. And obviously today went as it went. I think the plan now, Jeremy, do you have any parting thoughts before we move to the next portion of the emergency live stream? Any final thoughts on Tom Thibodeau and his legacy, his job as Knicks head coach, the firing, anything?
I'm appreciative of Thomas Jamas and what he has done for this franchise. He elevated this team in a way that very few could. It was going into coming out of a pandemic with a team that just had very little talent, and being able to maximize players, put winning talent and doing the best that he could with the help of the front office to create an environment that was sustainable and that could thrive. And every year, outside of one, things seemed to get better and better. And then you hit a wall. And at a certain point, you wonder, is this worth it? Should we keep going? And I thought what John said in terms of deserved versus earned was incredibly appropriate, where Tom Thibodeau absolutely deserved to coach the Knicks. That is the job of a lifetime. May we all be lucky enough to have a dream job come to fruition in the way that did for Tom Thibodeau. And yet, perhaps next season was not earned. And not even perhaps, because the Knicks determined it wasn't. So I appreciate him. I look forward to whatever is next, the plans that the front office has. They have my trust, my utmost trust and faith. And I'm really excited for us to navigate the next few weeks, because it's going to be a lot of chaos. But the good news is that everyone who's listening to this is in some incredible hands right now. So, gentlemen, thank you very much. I'll leave you to it.
Thank you, Jeremy.
There will be a new phone call where we figure out the new schedule, Jeremy, I promise. Now that the Knicks have decided that we don't, like, what we plan does not matter. Like, what we decide to do does not matter.
You know what they say about best laid plans.
Yes. There's like my dad's watching. He just put in all caps. Thomas Jamas? Yes, that's Tom Thibodeau's middle name, Dad. Don't look it up, by the way. Don't look it up.
Don't look it up. It's the facts.
Just that's, you heard it here first from Knicks Film School. There's a famous quote around religious people. If you want to hear God laugh, tell him what you had planned. Well, in the Knicks world, that God is Leon Rose. Tell him what you had planned. And we had a whole bunch of cap or no caps and off-season content ready to go for the rest of the month. And he laughed at us and gave us this instead. So thank you for that, Leon Rose. Sorry,
Thanks,
Dad.
Jeremy. Oh,
thank you, guys.
Also, sorry.
See you, Jeremy.
All right.
Okay. I'm going to leave you guys to it.
DJ, how are you?
Hi. I'm good. Can you see me?
I can't, but it's fine. As long as everybody else can see you, it's all the better.
Okay.
I feel bad because Jeremy just ducked out, and I just thought of a response to what he said, which is that we trust in Leon Rose to do the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
I tell you, we all better have trust in Leon Rose, because if one wanted to be really cynical today, one could, and I'm not going to do this because I don't believe this is what happened, and I don't believe this is what how Leon Rose operates, and I just have a lot of faith in him. But if we're not predisposed to have my viewpoint, one could say that Leon Rose went out and made 2 trades last summer that maybe did not work out as well as he would have liked. And today is the day that someone pays the price for that. Before we get into any further specifics, I will just ask you again, as I asked Jeremy, what was your reaction to the news, and what are your general thoughts?
Yeah, well, after the season ended, I thought he would be back. I definitely considered the idea of him not coming back, and there was enough buzz out there that I think any reasonable mind thought that there was a good chance that he was not going to be back. But I thought in the end he was going to get another shot. And then when Ian Begley had the appearance with Zach Lowe and went out of his way on 2 occasions to reiterate the fact that Tom Thibodeau was under a pretty significant evaluation period, I shifted my thought to prepare myself that he was not going to come back. But even with saying that, when I saw the Shams tweet, it was a shock to the system just to see the words on screen that the Knicks had relieved Tom Thibodeau of his coaching duties, because he's been such a fixture with his organization for years now that it does feel like we are headed into some uncharted waters that hopefully will be calmer than choppy. But it is a situation here that, and I said this after Game 6, where you make this move and there is merit behind it, and I understand it, and I get that Tom Thibodeau may have reached his ceiling as a head coach, and for this team to get to where we all think they can get to might have to be pushed aside. This next move here is the move for Leon Rose, because you cannot mess this up. And it is
No.
In one way makes this a very courageous move, because as you mentioned earlier, he could have brought Tom Thibodeau back, and most, I think, would have understood the decision, and he wouldn't have been lambasted by the national media like he's being lambasted right now. It would have been a completely reasonable decision to make. Now, like you said, now it's the hard part, figuring out who the right person is to maximize this roster.
Yeah, I mean, the challenge for the next head coach, it's not going to come on night one. It's not going to come on night one, because night one, you're going to get your Jalen Brunsons and your Josh Harts. I mean, and I would think there are probably another couple of names that I would add to that list, but those guys most prominently, that were Tibbs disciples. I mean, they would go to the grave for Tibbs. And they are going to go out there and they are going to play the same way that they would have played if Tom Thibodeau was still the head coach. And then you're going to get some other guys, assuming they're still on this roster, who are going to go out there and they may, I'm not saying going to go out there and like try harder or anything, but like they're going to go out there and they're going to want to, make it very clear that like the organization did the right thing in moving on from Tibbs. And to me, that's not interesting. What's interesting is, again, the first time things don't go well, and the first time things are shaky, because the thing about Tibbs, and you could put, this is throwing all the X's and O's completely out the window, is when things did get rocky, and God knows there have been rocky moments here with this franchise since Tibbs came aboard, he was this stabilizing presence, for better or for worse, because like, again, you knew he was going to be steady throughout all of it. And it was just like, no matter what as a player, whatever your personal beliefs were about what was going on or this or that, you're like, well, ultimately at the end of the day, it doesn't fucking matter, because he's there and we're going to have to go out there and we're going to have to do what we have to do tomorrow and the next day and the next day. And that was through 5 years, with one notable exception and it took place over just the absolute most grueling 5-week stretch or 4-week stretch, whatever it was, 6 week stretch in the 2021-20 season. That attitude has prevented the bottom from ever falling out, or the bottom from ever coming close to falling out. Yeah. And it's why they've had this. I think it's a big reason why they've always had the success that they've had. When you bring in a new head coach, that is not necessarily going to be the case. And whoever that coach is going to have to figure out a way to develop that same steady foundation, so that when it feels like the ground is shaking out underneath everybody, because again, it happens to the best teams in the league. It always happens multiple times a year. Everybody stays calm. Everybody continues to do their job, and the thing doesn't devolve, because again, talent alone in this league, I don't have to think hard to cite examples. Talent alone in this league doesn't guarantee anything. You need the culture. You need the whole thing. So it's a risk, but do you think it is? I guess I'll just ask you then, do you think it's a risk worth taking?
Yeah, I am inclined to believe it is a risk worth taking at this point. I say that with trying my hardest to try to get folks out there to understand how big a risk this might end up being. Because look, we can talk about maybe not names, but the types of coaches they're going to seek out. I think you made a great point about steadiness, not just in the face of losing, but in the face of a New York media that obviously we know is relenting. And Tibbs, I think, was really well equipped to handle the New York media because he didn't care. It never bothered him. He didn't have that. You talked about JJ Redick storming off a few months ago. There was never going to be those moments. He was going to prevent that.
But he respected them too, which is the other massive part of it.
Correct. He never made enemies. Never. Whether it's officials or media members, he never made enemies.
No.
Now, I think the organization has to look at this in two ways in terms of who they go to next. What are the principles and what are the actual schematic X's and O's ideas, concepts that are going to bring out the best version of this team? And then, and maybe this is just as important, are you equipped to handle the 5-game losing streak? Are you equipped to handle December when the team is, 3 games over 500 and just got beat by the Celtics by 20 and you're just not finding your ground, but you're getting somewhere, but it's just taking a little bit of time. Are you steady in the face of that tumult? You have to know that person can handle it. And I think the only way to you never really know, but the best chance you have is to bring in someone that is an established NBA head coach. And we're going to hear a lot about names that are from the college ranks or first-time head coaching possibilities. I think you have to look at this and be a little risk averse in a way. Raise your ceiling while keeping in mind that you cannot let the bottom fall out, as you mentioned.
So what you just got into, what you just raised, to me gets at the heart of why did you fire Tom Thibodeau today? If the reasons for firing Tom Thibodeau are, as I suggested a few minutes ago, and I'm not sure how much you heard, and it is really more about his not even inflexibility with doing certain things on the basketball court, but inflexibility in terms of if the way he goes about seeking and evaluating and processing evidence, the end result of that does not match up with whatever it is that you, Joe Basketball, are saying, you might as well not even be in the room. I think that they're doing this because they want to have someone that brings an approach of like, okay, this isn't what I would do, and this isn't what I think is the best way to do, but I'll consider it and I'll try it because this is a collaborative situation here. And it's funny, maybe not funny, I don't know if that's the right. It's something that, again, if I'm right, and again, I'm kind of going by the reporting. I'm going by, again, little things you hear here and there. If this is why he got canned, it's essentially the same reason he got canned in Chicago. Because in Chicago, there was no question the man was a great head coach. But the front office and the organization at large was like, it's like we're two ships passing in the night. And now that franchise has not really recovered since then. We hope the same is not true here. But again, it has to be, I think I agree with you. It has to be someone that has the flexibility, the open ear, the open-mindedness, whatever you want to say. But so if that's really all it is, then maybe it is wise to go with the veteran head coach. Like, again, I'm just like a name that comes to mind. Please do not take this as my endorsement that I wanted to hire this person. I just It's the first name that came to my mind. Someone like Frank Vogel.
Mhm.
Frank Vogel was hired by the Lakers, and that dude was like, "What? I get to coach LeBron James and Anthony Davis? Sure. You want me to have Jason Kidd sit next to me? Jason Kidd can sit on my fucking lap if you want to. I don't care. You want me to take input from Rob Pelinka, from Magic Johnson, from Jeannie Buss, from Kurt Rambis, from what's Kurt's wife's name? Linda Rambis? He didn't get.
Sure.
And you know what? But Frank Rambis is a good head coach. He went in there and he's like, okay, look, guys, this is not complicated. You guys are really talented basketball players. And he made the thing work. And then it went off the rails. And I don't think that was Frank Vogel's fault. So maybe that's all it is. But I guarantee you, Deej, there's going to be a lot of people out there, if they do hire a Frank Vogel or someone like that, who are going to be like, wait a minute, hold on. Really? This is it? You know, and I think they're going to have an issue with that.
Yeah, well, it's funny because you mentioned the inflexibility, and to me, if there is one thing that just kept coming up is like this front office, they bring in Tibbs, and then they know we're gonna have to bring in Tibbs guys, right? Tibbs guys, like that phrase was said countless times over the years in terms of offseason decisions, guys they brought in that fit that sort of moniker, guys that didn't, and a lot of those guys didn't work out. The Karl Anthony Towns trade, probably, you know, you can argue that it did work out in so many ways. And then there's the other side of the coin. And maybe this is where the front office kind of sits, is that it wasn't truly optimized the way that they envisioned when they brought him in. Now, putting that aside here, I think the front office clearly gave Tom this carte blanche. You do what you do. We'll do our best to bring in your guys. But in terms of principles and concepts and lineups and minutes, other than injury stuff where we have to step in, you can just run the thing how you want to, and we'll stay out of the way. You're Tom Thibodeau. You're not going to take our advice anyway, but you know what? We know what we're getting into. When we get into the Tibbs business, we are going to let you go.
Yeah.
They probably got very tired of that. And we always hear about locker rooms needing a different voice and going somewhere, you know, the dichotomy with who the coach you're firing was and then who you're bringing in. But I think this front office is probably, if I had to guess, going to want someone that's going to have a more collaborative approach to things. Because when things aren't going well, it must be very frustrating for a front office to not feel like you can go into the coach's room and just hash it out. And maybe there was more of that than we're giving credit for. That's possible, but it doesn't feel like Tom Thibodeau was necessarily going to be open to that collaborative relationship.
Well, so it's interesting you say that. Look, I don't know anything for sure. When Tibbs was hired, the front office, I would posit to you, absolutely knew that all of what you're saying was going to become an issue. And you know how I know that? Because they helped fill out Tibbs' staff. And they went and hired Johnny Bryant. And they went out and hired Mike Woodson. And they went out and hired Kenny Payne. Those people were not Tom Thibodeau hires. Those people were William Worldwide Wesley hires.
Correct.
And you know what happened to each one of those people? One by one?
Bye-bye.
They all fucking left.
Yeah. Right.
I wonder why. Have you ever been in a workplace environment where you're like, shit, if I just stop showing up, do you think anybody would know?
No, it's funny. Like, I had a buddy go to a Knicks game a year ago, and he's like, "Did you know Tibbs doesn't talk to his coaches prior to meeting with his team during timeouts?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's just that's his thing." He goes, "I never put two and two together. He's the only coach that I've seen. He's been to a ton of games that won't have the pre-meeting with the coaching staff prior to meeting with the players. Like, he is an entity unto himself." And you know, there's been talk about getting an offensive coordinator in there. All that stuff was never going to fly with him.
I laughed.
I feel like
every time someone brought that up, I was like, okay, that's who we can bring in.
Right. Read the room. This is not happening here.
You got to unearth Red Holzman. That's why I listen to him.
Maybe Tibbs would listen then if you brought him back. he might lend an ear in that case. But yeah, the flexibility or lack thereof is, I think, a big key here, which makes where they go next like all the
Now,
more
okay.
fascinating. Yeah.
Two
Go ahead.
things. One, which one of these should I do first? You mentioned, well, yeah, you know what? Let me ask this. Okay. You mentioned at the start, like this team getting them where we believe they should be able to go.
Mhm.
I never believed that this was a real threat to win the title this year. I mean, I guess maybe once they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals, and I'm like, all right, well, they're a round away, and like shit, SGA could sprain his ankle or something. Like I was thinking along those lines, but did I ever think like, oh yeah, this team could beat the Thunder? Maybe I allowed myself to dream. I don't know that I ever fully, like, wholeheartedly, if I ever got sat down and actually really started thinking about it, would I believe it? So I guess my
And
question
did you believe this before the season as well? Did it change at all?
Before the season, I definitely didn't think that
Okay.
they were capable. And then that was solidified throughout the year.
Yeah. Against Boston, Cleveland, Oklahoma City.
Yeah, against all that. And then again, they got to the Eastern Conference Finals, and I'm like, you know what? Crazier things have happened. But in any case, that was my opinion. I know a lot of Knicks fans did not share that opinion with me. Certainly not after they made the Eastern Conference Finals. Do you think that there was a world where this team, as composed this year, like, was a lot better or hashtag meaningfully better than they actually were?
It's a really hard question because I think I align with your thinking, but it's hard for me to divorce the product I saw, which Tibbs had a significant hand in molding, versus looking at this team on paper in a vacuum. Like, what could they be? What would a new, fresh set of eyes concoct in terms of an offensive scheme that would elicit a legitimate elite offense for a whole season, not just a couple of months? I do think there is more work to be done within the roster to truly make this a championship caliber team. So I would say I agree with you that this team is probably not a significant move away, like a couple of like reasonable moves away from really being in that category to compete, especially when, and maybe this is another aspect of this, it felt like they had this amazing chance here to get to the finals because of, the way it all shaked out. But next year, without Tatum, they could be looking at this like, we can't get it wrong. Like this year, like next year has to be, we could look at this in a 2-3 year window, sure, but it has to be next year. And we can't be unsure that Tibbs is the right guy.
I'm so happy you said that. I've said this before, but rest in peace, Pat Macri. So my dad said to me, from a very early age, it was in reference to romantic relationships. Said, if there's any doubt, there's no doubt. And I think you kind of have to treat when you are at this stage of your process, so to speak, as a franchise, I think you have to treat it that way. If there's any doubt that Tom Thibodeau is capable of getting you all the way next year, you can't go into next season being like, if it doesn't work out, we'll let him go in the middle of the year, and then we'll just be ready to hire, elevate an interim, or maybe, they're like, Tibbs, you're canned unless you let us hire this guy to be your associate head coach, and then you're trying to no, don't do that. Either do it or don't do it. That's it. So this gets me to my next question. Your answer to the previous one. Several times now, I've seen people posit this thing before today as an either or between Cat or Tibbs. And I haven't quite seen it that way. And maybe it's because I'm just too focused on the defense. And I just, from watching Karl-Anthony Towns this year and from watching him for most of his career, unless they're going to hire, fucking Gandalf or I don't know. He's the only wizard whose name I know who's in the faculty at Harry Potter. I haven't read all the Harry Potter books, and I haven't watched the movies in a long time. That's going to come with a magic wand. I just don't know that any head coach they're going to hire is going to get Karl-Anthony Towns to defend at an appreciably better level. Now, the offensive side of the ball is, I think, very different. However, as we have talked about over the course of time,
Andrew's here. I don't know if you can see him, but he's confused.
What, Andrew?
Did you just say Gandalf is in Harry Potter?
Is that the one in Lord of the Rings?
Yes, Dumbledore's in Harry Potter.
Oh, Dumbledore, Gandalf, Dumbledore, it's the same shit, whatever.
No, it's not. Oh, to every dork out there that felt the pain that I felt it too. Okay, that was extremely sacrilegious.
They're both wizards, aren't they?
Yes. You literally should have just said Gilbert Arenas or John Wall. Like that would have been up your alley to name a wizard. Okay, that would have been the way to go.
Where were you?
Which is it, Dumbledore or Gandalf? What should I?
Dumbledore. Harry Potter. It's Dumbledore. Yes.
Jordan Poole.
Maggie Smith. Maggie Smith played a professor at Hogwarts, right?
Maggie Smith? Is that the actress?
Maggie Smith, the actress. Yeah.
Okay, maybe. Was she
She's Professor McGonagall. Just say Bradley Beal and get to your point.
Okay. You get my point. I made my point.
What was your point again?
My point is that no head coach is going to teach Karl-Anthony Towns how to be an acceptable defender. But in theory, I think a head coach could make him better on offense. I'm focusing on the in theory part because, as we've talked about all year, Cat is kind of a finicky offensive player, and that he doesn't. And you've talked about this as much as anyone, Deej. There are things that he could do that it's like, here, big guy, it's right there for you. And it's up to him whether he does those things or not necessarily up to anyone else around him. So let me just stay there for a second. Where do you see the Cat part of it fitting in with this?
It's a fascinating question to think about because you could look at the evidence this year and say you have to maximize the offense. The defense is to the point where it's got a clear ceiling. It's not going to get better than maybe average at best. Maximize the offense, be the best offense in the NBA. You have the pieces to do that. There's at least enough evidence early on the season to say you could, if you can replicate that, that is a team that has a higher ceiling than the team we saw for most of this year, especially post January 1. The other way to look at this is we got a really good look at the double big lineup. We know that Karl-Anthony Towns playing the 4 has been a part of elite defenses. The defense this year in the playoffs, I thought for the most part was good. I think you could envision maybe a coach coming in and thinking, and maybe this is where you have to have these interviews and decide, all right, how do we as an organization want to utilize Cat? And let's make sure we bring in a head coach that's going to align with those beliefs, because Cat at the 4, Cat at the 5. I mean, that is, you are on two opposite sides of the scale there.
Oh, it's question one.
It has to be question one. And I can make an argument for both, because I can say, play Cat at the 4 with Mitch, start the game, let him go to the 5 in the second quarter against reserves. Maybe his defense isn't as exposed. Piecemeal it the rest of the way. Maybe you close with him at the 5, but you get the best of both worlds. And then, by the way, the other thing is you get Mitchell Robinson for an off season and training camp healthy.
You do
figure out that chemistry. They were kind of thrown together in ways in the playoffs after some spot minutes in the.
Hold on.
Yeah,
Tom Thibodeau had. I went and counted 14 games to experiment with the double big lineup. He played them 46 minutes, I think it was, over those 14 games. So again, if we're being fair and we are levying appropriate criticisms, one might be, hey, you had a chance to explore this lineup more in the regular season, you didn't do so.
Yeah, well, that is like the ultimate criticism, because even with DeLon Wright and Shamet, and these guys that he went to in like desperation, you could have in those final 30 games like really leaned into that aspect a little more. Even like the switching part of it, where you go to this concept that you didn't utilize all regular season.
Yeah.
And it works against Boston because I think in part because of Boston's futility and Porzingis's lack of health. And then you go to Indiana where that switching scheme didn't really work as well because Indiana had the ability to counter it and have different actions. So that's, of all the criticisms, that is the most valid. Like, he didn't using the regular season as a template to make sure you're in the best position in the playoffs has never been how he viewed it. And to be clear, it is a luxury to think that way because only a few teams can really look at it that way. Knicks were probably one of them, and he didn't look at it that way. So I think that is a significant criticism of him.
He should not have looked at the regular season that way, and did not, obviously, and should not have in his first year as Knicks head coach, in his second year as Knicks head coach, in his third year as Knicks head coach. Maybe by year 4, he could have looked at it a little bit more that way. But year 4, we never even got to have that conversation because the team...
Everyone got hurt.
Well, actually, first they turned over half their roster. First Mitch got hurt, then they turned over half their roster, then everybody got hurt.
Correct.
And then it was triage the rest of the way. So the conversation was relevant. The last thing I want to get to with you is, to me, if there is a player who it's like, either this guy has got to go or Tibbs has got to go, and I'm not suggesting that that's actually what this was. To me, it was Mikal Bridges, because not only the personality part of it, and I think the personality part I gotta think it had something to do with it. I mean, I don't, for me to sit here and be like, I don't think Mikal Bridges liked Tom Thibodeau very much. I don't think that's a controversial thing to say. That's just me. But Mikal Bridges looked, for large swaths of this year, like a fish out of water on both ends of the floor.
Yeah, but here's the thing, and I've been thinking about the Bridges piece of it since the regular season ended, and it's been crystallized for me, at least in terms of like what I believe here. Mikal Bridges, and I don't know if he was, and you're seeing a lot of this, like Knicks players didn't know their roles and they were unsure of like where their standing was. Knicks Fan TV, I know, reported that. I don't understand how that can be at all possible. Like, if you're Mikal Bridges, I'm not saying he was part of that, but you're going to play your 35, 40 minutes and you're going to guard the point of attack, and you're going to, Cat's going to be in some semblance of drop or something, and you're going to figure out a way to get over the top of those screens. Your role. To me, the issue that Bridges had this year was more that he didn't know what the hell Cat was going to do possession to possession.
Well,
And when you're guarding the basketball and your big is supposed to be your contain and supposed to be the one that you're funneling things for, and you don't know if he's going to be on the right side or the wrong side of the screen. You don't know if he's going to be in a shallow drop, at the level, a deep drop. Because listen, if Cat was creating these deep drop scenarios, possession after possession, when he was supposed to be higher, and we're watching games live and we're seeing Mikal Bridges chase frantically to try to rear contest, and we're like, what the hell? He's getting caught up on all these screens. Well, part of it is that his pick and roll defensive partner is 10 feet further back than he was supposed to be. So we have to also like understand that you could remove the coach, but then we have to acknowledge that the players themselves have these faults and these deficiencies that are not going to magically correct themselves because you bring in someone new. And Mikal Bridges, will he be more prioritized on offense with a new coach? How? He's still going to be at best the third option, sometimes fourth option. And if he's going to be prioritized, what the hell is OG Anunoby going to be doing? And we know OG Anunoby likes his shots. So it is going to be a very challenge, whoever the head coach is going to be. On offense, it's going to be Brunson. Cat are going to be your fulcrums. How do you prioritize your wings? What does that mean to get Bridges in better opportunities as a scorer? How do you make sure OG Anunoby is not going to pout on defense because he's gone 4 minutes without a shot? These are very hard problems. And these are problems that don't magically get corrected because you've changed the coach. So I think we have to be we have to understand that this team is now going in a different direction, and potentially their ceiling is going to be raised here because a head coach is going to be a new voice, and it's going to invigorate them and maybe maximize the offensive talent on this team, which has not, I think, met the standard they should have met this season. But again, what are the trade-offs, and what are the unintended consequences, and what are the things that maybe are bigger, larger issues that a head coach is not fixing? And I think the players have to look themselves in the mirror. They've gotten their way now. Here's the other part of it. You had players, whoever these players were in that meeting, and they gave voice to the fact that this team needs to go in a different direction with the head coach. Are they now going to be part of the meeting to hire the next head coach? Are they going to be in the meeting with the head coach to decide, all right, are you the right guy? Because how do you empower them to get rid of the coach and not empower them to help make the decision? And then if you're doing that, how many voices? We know the Knicks within the front office have several significant voices. This isn't a Leon Rose operation where it's like he makes the call and it trickles on down. There are a lot of voices within the front office. And now you have a bunch of players that think they can also be part of massive organizational decisions. And I would just caution everyone, that is a dangerous position to be in. It might work out swimmingly and beautifully. And the next coach that they buy in and give buy-in to and give their vote of confidence could change this, and we could be, in the finals next year. But we have to also acknowledge that we are now, when you empower players to make decisions on the firing and hiring of coaches, that makes it very difficult on that head coach who now has a group of guys that have a habit built up that they can go to the front office and say, you know what, I'm not a fan here. Let's move on, or let's adjust things. That's just the danger and the cautionary tale of what now seems to be not just a front office decision, but a complete organizational decision involving several key members of the basketball team. Well, and that's a very unique and dangerous situation to be in.
It's Pandora's box is what you've opened, and it's incredibly well said. And it just reminded me, I've said it on pods and live streams and things over weeks now, really probably going back a couple months, that people have asked me, do you think Tibbs is going to be back? And I kept saying, my gut feeling is probably no. I think that was my answer more often than not. The one moment in the last several days where I really had the thought oh, wow, maybe I'm wrong, is when Fred and James dropped their article with the cat stuff. And it was, and when I read that, I was like, oh, this is going to be Tibbs's life preserver. And I just, again, to your point about the players, and is Mikal Bridges going to be happy, and is OG Anunoby going to be happy, and all these sorts of things. I will just say I would be mildly surprised, at least, if this is the only big move the Knicks make this summer. On that note, we got someone else here.
I would also be surprised, by the way, John, if that's the only big move that the Knicks make this summer. That's for sure. You know where you could make a pretty big move? You can make it this summer at Fanatics Fest, ladies and gentlemen. Shout out to the fine folks over at Fanatics. Please join us at Fanatics Fest. Use promo code. Oh, by the way, John's going to leave and come back, by the way, DJ. So that's why it's just you and me on the screen.
Sure.
Join us in a couple weeks at Fanatics Fest, but get your tickets now, because today and tomorrow are your last days to use promo code Knicks Film School 20 and get 20% off your tickets. 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, all 3 days. You get a 3-day pass, get 20% off your entire thing. There's separate panels you could go to. Deuce McBride is currently scheduled to be there. We will be there. Come hang out with us as we take in Fanatics Fest over that weekend. And then as I add John back to the screen, folks, I'm also going to be adding a fourth person. Jeff J is in the building, ladies and gentlemen.
What's up,
John,
brother?
What's up? How
John,
are you?
can you see us now?
Yes, now I'm good. I came out. I left and came back in.
Okay, cool. So that worked. Jeff,
So
you
I
can
have a
see
question.
all of us?
Yeah.
Pardon?
Jeff, you can see all of us?
I see everybody.
Everybody. Okay, just making sure. There was a StreamYard issue, so we're good now. Okay, John, you had a question for Jeff.
Jeff is kind enough to join us right here. When are we getting to super chats? Because I want to inform
After
people.
Jeff.
After Jeff. Okay.
Yeah. Yes. You love to tell people what's coming up next. Don't worry. They're here for the ride. I promise you. They are all here for the ride.
Just making sure.
Yes.
Making sure. All right. DJ, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any final thoughts, sir?
No, I mean, I'm curious what's next for Tom Thibodeau, to be honest with you. I don't think TV is in the cards. I think you went that route and didn't really pan out that great. But Andrew, what was your?
Can I make the first official invitation to Tom Thibodeau? Please come on the Knicks Film School podcast. God. I know of one person who would like to give you a 10-part interview series where we just pick your brain about basketball.
Oh man, I wrote it. I wrote in my newsletter today. If I had Tibbs in front of me, I would say 2 words. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that'll be my send off. Thank you, Tibbs. It was. I remember the KFS days prior to Tibbs. This brand has sort of grown with the team as he has helped lift off this organization. That I get where they're coming from here. They need to get a little bit higher, and it's quite possible he just wasn't capable of pushing them to those heights. And we will see. It is going to be another fascinating offseason because that's just what happens around here, I guess. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, DJ.
Be good.
Okay. Jeff, the floor is yours, sir.
Where's the floor?
I'm here. Hi. I see Andrew. Wait, hold on. There it is. Okay, we got it.
I'm back. What's going on?
Jeff, I'm going to start with you the same question I started with Jeremy and I started with DJ. Your thoughts on the move. Well, your impressions when your reaction when you first found out and your thoughts on the move.
My first reaction was the Luka trade reaction. Went to the Shams, make sure it was Shams's actual account. When I saw it come across my timeline, I really thought this was going to be a slowish news day. Like when I tell you I was getting ready to just chill and relax, things were winding down, finishing up some work, doing some research, and then that bomb dropped. Checked, it was the right account, and I was shocked. I'm not shocked that it happened. I'm shocked that they did it, that they actually pulled the trigger when they pulled it and did it right now. I heard all the reporting from Begley on Zach Lowe to CP and what he was saying during the series, where it pretty much sounded like Tibbs was coaching for his job in the Pacers series. So that's why it doesn't shock me that they made a change. I just resigned myself to the fact that we were going one last ride with Tibbs in 25-26. So to actually see the coaching change come to fruition, it was a shock. It was a shock, and so many other emotions hit at once.
Well, let's talk about the emotions because we just talked about I talked about kind of the logistics of it and the reasons for it with Jeremy, and we touched on some of the X's and O's stuff with DJ. The one thing I haven't gotten to yet is the emotional component of it. And it strikes me that you're the one member of Knicks Film School. Yeah, you're the one member of Knicks Film School, and this just means we need to hang out more. That I've never actually talked to you about your feelings about Tom Thibodeau. So before I get to mine, I will just ask you yours because you just said it was a bunch of emotions. Like, what emotions did you have?
I'm disappointed, man. I'm sad. I'm sad for him more than I am for the fan base and for the team. I'm a dreamer by nature. I believe in the power of manifestation. I appreciate people who go all in on their dreams and eschew any type of self-doubt or ridiculousness that could come from leaving something that was secure in order to follow your passion. That's pretty much a parallel with my life and my career as somebody who was working a corporate job for the first half, doing all this media stuff as a side gig. And the side gig was the dream, was the escape from that role that ended up becoming the dream that went from an escape to a dream to the reality that maybe I can do this and make a living, to the realization that this is why I was put on this planet, to follow this career path. And it took me a while and I got there. And that makes me appreciate Tibbs so much more, knowing what he sacrificed to be a head coach, understanding that this is his dream job. He was working and living in his dream job for the last 5 years. I rooted for him to win a title. In my ultimate fantasy for the Knicks, he won a title this year and said, my watch is ended.
Yeah.
Move into the front office and let the new generation handle it. He accomplishes the one goal that's eluded him as a head coach. And he's able to walk off in the sunset and say, I did it my way. I zigged when everybody else would have zagged, and it worked. For one season, it worked. And his dream aligned with mine because I'm a Knicks fan at heart, and I wanted to see my team win a title. So when I heard his story and I knew his New York roots, and he was on the staff before with Jeff Van Gundy, I just said, man, especially for all the criticism that he's taken and a lot of it that was off base throughout the years, even for the stuff that was on point, I just felt like somebody who's that principled and that steeped in his ways and gets the results that he earns, I just wanted him to get the ultimate payoff. So to see that it isn't going to happen with the Knicks, I was super disappointed for him. At the same time, I'm appreciative and grateful for Tom Thibodeau, because you cannot tell the story of the Knicks resurgence without Tibbs. The culture shift. He's as much a part of it as Brunson, as Leon Rose in the new front office, as anybody. When nobody wanted to come here, he's the one who took the job. He won the Coach of the Year in 2021. He did all these things. He hit all these accolades, and he established the ultimate floor for this team and brought them back to respectability. So, you know, I know y'all probably talked about his accolades throughout the course.
We actually haven't. Like I wrote a newsletter before, and I'll just, I mean, for anybody who cares like about this sort of thing, I mean, I'll pull it up right now because I just literally just wrote it. He is, in terms of the Knicks, 4th in all-time wins for the Knicks, 5th in playoff wins, 4th in playoff winning percentage, 6th in overall winning percentage, and the only head coach who has had a longer tenure as Knicks head coach since Red Holzman was the man who Tom Thibodeau was on his staff, and that's Jeff Van Gundy.
Yeah.
As far as larger league-wide accolades, he's 28th on the all-time wins list. And if you look at and he's 79 games, finishes his career, excuse me, 79 games above 500. Every coach, with the exception of one, who is high or more games above 500, has been to at least a NBA Finals. They've at least won their conference at least once, with the exception of one man, who ironically also was the Knicks head coach, and that's Don Nelson. Now, Don Nelson is in the Hall of Fame because he retired. When he retired, he was second on the all-time wins list. Greg Popovich has since surpassed him. But everybody else who has more than 79 games by 500 has at least been to the finals, again, with the exception of Don Nelson. And all of them have won a championship, with the exception of Rick Adelman and George Karl, Jerry Sloan. Those are the only ones. Now, all of those coaches that I just talked about, with the exception of like Doc Rivers, who's active, and Steve Kerr, who's active, and Eric Spoelstra, who's active, and Billy Cunningham, who just didn't coach for very long, they're all in the Hall of Fame. So I'm listening to what you just said. I go through all this to say this. there is a small part of me who is like, man, if Tibbs had just made the finals, even once, with the resume he had, maybe there was a shot. I don't think he would have gotten to the Hall of Fame, but like maybe there was at least a shot. Because especially since if he had gotten to the finals, he almost at that point, I think he would have been back next year. And then he would have been able to get more games over 500, add more games to his win total, get more playoff wins, the whole thing. But then the other part of me is like, you know what? Maybe there's a reason that he's below all those other guys. And there is something about the way that he coached or just went about his business within an organization that was different enough from the people who found that supreme success. And then I think about game one and I want to drink bleach. And so I will toss it back to you. I thought that was incredibly eloquent what you said, though, about your journey. It's similar to my feelings about Tibbs, which I'll save for after you're out of here. I will, though, turn it because we have a lot of super chats to get to.
Yes,
have
sir.
you thought about who you want to be as the Knicks head coach at all? I mean, one thing we have not, I mean, I tossed out Frank Vogel, but not as a name that I want, but just like as an example of a sort of person that they could go after if they were looking for a specific thing. Have you thought about who you would want or the type of player or coach that you would want?
I said this with Dex and Brian Fonseca, New York Scott game earlier today. The Thunder found Mark Daigneault in the G League.
Yeah.
There's people out there. I'm more about, ironically, given what happened today, I'm more about the principles and the values that a coach most buys into than anything. So for me, I share the same values that Tibbs does with limiting turnovers, defense, all those core principles that transcend eras in basketball, because I feel like if you do that throughout the course of the history of basketball, you'll more than likely be successful. The one element that this coach needs to have is creativity and innovation and flexibility. Those are the three things that they need. They need to be able to operate a modern NBA offense and even and defense for that matter. I need a person that's going to come into the team and look at the roster that they have and say, based on the talents of this roster, I will construct a scheme that puts them in the best position to win. Not, I need this particular person to win, because that's a limitation, right? I would use a movie example, but I don't want KFS to get flooded with certain bots. So I'll leave it.
I want to hear the movie example now.
Hell no. I'm not doing it to you. Chat, if you know what I'm talking about, it's a director who seems like they can only direct one certain way. And if they are limited by any type of time constraints or whatever, or maybe logic of the story they're trying to tell, then it doesn't come out the way you know who I'm talking. Chat.
No, I like this game though.
I'm not going to say it because there are folks. I'm just not going to say it. The fact of the matter remains: if you can only work well with the tools that you're given, then you're not proficient in your craft. You should be able to operate. I put myself on the spot. I can't grill. Will you get the Memorial Day, 4th of July, Labor Day? Listen, I'm DeLon Wright. I'm situational, baby. But you give me a Foreman grill, and I'm Emeril Lagasse.
You're the guy who looks over the chef's shoulder and it's like, hey.
Exactly. It's a skill that I can learn, but I haven't learned it to this point. But if you give me a Foreman grill, I am Gordon Ramsay, right?
That's great.
But there are people who know how to cook regardless of the utensils that they have. Those are the people that you want to be trapped with during the apocalypse, when you're outside in the woods and all you got is like a canteen or like a metal can and just some ingredients, and they're able to chef it up because they understand the principles of cooking. and they're able to apply it no matter what tool they have, because they use the basic tools, and then once you get more advanced, they get better because their base skills and their ability to innovate with the tools that they're given, it maintains or elevates their level of quality, the culinary quality, right? That's what I need from a coach. I need them to be able to see the roster and say, okay, one, see the roster. Two, understand this NBA, the way that offenses are continuously breaking the rules of NBA logic year after year after year, and say, based on who I have, how can we maximize the talent? Because that's been the key thing throughout this whole season, is about talent maximization. So if you bring in somebody who is old school, then you should have kept Tibbs. Straight up.
I really want to know what director you're talking about. You're gonna have to put something in the private chat because it's
gonna. I will. I'll put it right now, but I'm not gonna say it.
On that note, no, we're not bringing up somebody else, but I do want to go through some names. So, I think the name that has been bandied. Hold on, did he put it? Oh, I see. That's why. Okay, now I get it. Okay, thank you for that.
You can't do that. You can't react to it because now we have to tell everybody that Jeff is talking about.
He already.
Someone in the chat already got it.
Okay.
I'll put it to you like
all
that.
I'm gonna say is because but this is also an audio medium, so I'm just gonna say,
just look up, up and away,
up and away. Maybe
Martha.
Yeah, maybe you find out that your op that you thought was a threat to the universe. That suddenly you found out that their mom and your mom had the same name, and now you're best friends. Maybe,
or maybe you're the fastest man alive, and you trip over your own feet when you run.
Right, like maybe we decide that someone's gonna kidnap the fastest and most powerful being with super hearing and super speed. Is gonna kidnap their mom, and for some reason they can't figure out that they're just like trapped in a building 2 blocks away,
because the price of eggs were so high they got distracted in the supermarket.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah, maybe we do a 2-hour version of this live stream, and then a lot of people complain online.
I don't think a 2 hours enough.
Then we got to put out a 4-hour version of this live stream. Okay.
I will say that the big picture watch along with that was one of the funniest.
Wait, what, John? We're not referencing anything in particular. Shout out to the big picture though.
Names. Michael Malone.
GMAC.
Michael Malone is a name that has been brought up ever since Michael Malone got fired from the Nuggets. I think he fits the description of what you're talking about, Jeff, to a T in terms of what they should not hire. And again, if my suspicion, it sounds like DJ was kind of on my side as well. It sounds like you're on my side, that there were issues about communication. Maybe don't hire the guy whose owner was so fed up with the squabbling, the playground level squabbling and Cold War that was taking place between him and his GM that he fired both of them. Maybe don't hire that guy.
He's Tibbs with a BBL, man. Next.
Let's start there. Number 2, Johnny Bryant. Now, it was reported today by Shams, and I had someone, I think this has been in the works for a little while, that Johnny Bryant's one of the 2 finalists, him and another assistant on Kenny
Brian
Atkinson.
Ott, right?
Yeah, I forget the guy's name. I'll take your word for it. Assistant on Cleveland staff are finalists for the Suns job. The Knicks under Leon Rose have mostly, if not like exclusively, been methodical in their approach and decision and like in making big decisions. I did have the thought earlier today, the fact that they did this today without any maybe further consideration, might that have been them trying to, I can't believe I'm saying these words, get in on the Johnny Bryant sweepstakes before the, Suns hired him. The only thing I'll say about Johnny Bryant is this. There are people out there who I have interacted with over the last several years who you would think by the way they spoke about Johnny Bryant that he was the most established, successful head coach in the history of professional basketball. Like, oh my God, you know why this bad? Do you know why it rained today? It's because Johnny Bryant's not this associate coach of the Knicks anymore. I had some bad gas earlier this afternoon. Oh, that's right, because Johnny Bryant's not with the Knicks. Johnny Bryant could be, again, he could be the second coming of Red Auerbach or Red Holzman or any other successful Red coach that you want to name. Or he could be David Fisdale. We have absolutely no idea because he's never coached before in the NBA. We just don't know. So I guess that's my only response to the Johnny Bryant thing. And that said, look, if Leon Rose, in his estimation, says, hey, Johnny Bryant, man, we saw him. He was in our organization for whatever it was, 3 years. We saw enough to know this is our guy. I'll take his word for it. I'll applaud the hire and I'll be excited for it. And that's all there is to it. I mean,
yeah, he's familiar with. He honestly fits a lot of he checks a lot of my boxes in what I would want principle wise, moral principle and value wise from a head coach. There is a level of uncertainty, like you said, because we haven't seen him do it. He studied under some of the best, similar to like Kenny Atkinson when he did his internship at Golden State for those few years, and he was under Steve Kerr and then went back. He's been under Tibbs. He knows the organization. He knows the principles, and he does have an understanding of modern offenses and spaces and stuff like that he's spoken on before. So I don't think that rigidity and Johnny Bryant go hand in hand. It will be a gamble because he doesn't have the cachet. But once again, we've lived this timeline with the New York Knicks where they get the splashy name. I don't care about the name. I care about their game.
So speaking of splashy, Jay Wright is going to be discussed until they make a hire or Jay Wright comes out and says or tweets or whatever that he's not going to be the next head coach of the Knicks.
Mm-hmm.
Based on everything I've ever heard or read, I can't imagine that Jay Wright is going to want to come here and take this job with these responsibilities and this pressure.
Nah, he loves TV, man.
He seems to be living his best life in terms of like the wisdom of getting a Jay Wright. Again, who the hell knows? He's never coached a day in the NBA in his life. He's on the older side. Like, yes, he coached Jalen Brunson and Mikal Bridges and Josh Hart. Okay, and he's clearly a great college coach. Like, all right, does that mean he's the right guy for this job? I don't know.
Former Hofstra University coach, by the way.
This is very true. Obviously a New York guy. Mike Budenholzer is a name, again, that will get brought up. He's won an NBA championship. He's had success in Atlanta. He's had success in Milwaukee. He did not have success this year in Phoenix, although I don't know that many people who could have had success in Phoenix. This would upset me, like on a visceral level. And it's not because I think Mike Budenholzer was a bad coach. I actually think he got way too much blame in Phoenix this year. But like, there's uninspired and then there is uninspired. And this one's a bridge a little bit too far for me.
Yeah. They once again, any coach with the first name Mike or Michael is in the you might as well have kept Tibbs bucket for me.
Another name that, again, that I'm just going through what, I'm seeing some stuff out there as like, oh, might this person be a possibility? Rick Brunson will be, I gotta think, discussed as like, all right, he's here and he's the fucking best player's father. If they do that,
oh my God. Oh my God.
Like, just no. No. Just no. We can move on. And then two other names that I'll bring up, and then we'll move on.
Would
Taylor
you expect
Jenkins.
him on whatever future coaching staff?
It is to me, like in the immediate future, that's easily the biggest question I have. Like, are you gonna fire he's the guy's the face of your organization? You're gonna fire his dad? You're going to offer his dad to stay on whatever the next coach is. And then I brought this up months ago. So, okay, great. You're going to hire the next name I'm looking at here, Taylor Jenkins. Great. Taylor, you want to be the coach of the Knicks? Yeah, I'd love to be the coach of the Knicks. Okay, we love what you got planned. We love your ideas for Cat and the whole thing and everything. Okay, great. Oh, by the way, this the best player's son, the guy who you're going to be expected to command respect from, and he's going to have to, like, you know, listen to you when you say shit. His dad's going to be your assistant coach. That's cool with you, right? What do you do with that? I mean, I literally just don't know how. If I was a coaching candidate and that was posed to me, what am I going to be like? All right, I guess, you know, like.
I mean, he can earn a spot. I wouldn't be opposed to that. Like, if he interviews for the job.
So that's what they're gonna say. You have to interview Rick Brunson for a position,
Not to
and
have
then it's
to. I'm just saying, if he wants to even work with whoever the next head coach is, I'm trying to make it as non-nepotism as possible in a way that feels like we didn't just hire Rick Brunson to appease Jalen. That's what I'm thinking about right now.
Let me say this. It is interesting, and we probably should have spent more time on this until the hour and 51-minute mark, but it is interesting that nobody else was fired today. It was Tom Thibodeau only that was fired, which leads me to believe one of two things. A, that they're going to keep everybody retained for the moment, and they're going to hire the next head coach, and they're going to say to the next head coach, we're going to leave it to you about how many of these guys do you want to keep and how many of these guys do you want to get rid of. That to me would be reasonable.
That's reasonable.
Or they are planning to make the hire from Thibodeau's staff, which, again, looking at the staff, like, I mean, you know, Mo Cheeks has coaching experience. We just talked about Brunson. The guy who we all praised all season long, I forget his name, but the video guy, the guy who is in charge of the challenges.
Oh.
Again, I feel terrible. I'm forgetting his name. He's the best guy in the league at that particular job. He has coaching experience. He's coached, I forget in what league, maybe it's the G League or something, but that dude actually has been a coach. Again, we have no idea. So that would be the other possibility. And then the last name I'll just bring up, Dan Hurley. Actually, sorry, Taylor Jenkins. Any thoughts on Taylor Jenkins, who got fired from Memphis?
Put him with the mics in the should have kept Tibbs bucket. Yo, this isn't you said it best. You said the key word, inspired. Nothing inspires me. No disrespect to Taylor Jenkins. Nothing inspires me. You are going for a different type of coach. All the other coaches to me are in the archetype of Tibbs. And maybe I'm underselling Taylor Jenkins as a creative coach. I might be, and I'll leave that. I'll admit that. I seen what he did with Memphis. I thought he did a good job. I'm just saying, I'd rather new blood. New blood in. That's just me.
Let me just say this about Taylor Jenkins. Again, I don't follow Memphis very closely. Played one of the deepest rotations in the league. Did not play guys heavy minutes. Clearly had zero issue playing rookies. It's funny. I wrote about Tibbs, ironically, for the newsletter yesterday, in which I kind of gave my assessment of Tibbs for the season. And my comment was like, Leon Rose. I wrote about Leon Rose. My comment was that I'm not going to blame Rose for not taking Jalen Wells. Jalen Wells was taken 3 picks after Tyler Kolek in the second round. And he went on to be third in Rookie of the Year voting. And somebody commented in response, and it was completely fair. He's like, who the fuck are you kidding? If they drafted Jalen Wells, do you think Tom Thibodeau would have played Jalen Wells? Well,
exactly.
So Taylor Jenkins played Jalen Wells, played a lot of rookies, played Scottie Pippen Jr. Scottie Pippen Jr. wasn't a rookie, but he's a young player. Like, he's always played young players. He's experimented with different lineups. And perhaps most importantly of all, when the organization came to him this past summer in what turned out to be an extraordinarily ill-fated decision and was like, hey, we want you to change your offense, and we're going to bring in this guy from Europe to install his offense, and we want you to work with him. Taylor Jenkins was like, all right, I'll give it a shot. So clearly, he is open-minded to a degree. That's the only reason I think there are a lot of things about Taylor Jenkins that if you were so inclined to want a retread, he might be someone you would look at. And then the last guy is Dan Hurley, obviously the coach of UConn, who won back-to-back NCAA championships. I'll just say this. If they end up hiring Dan Hurley, we're going to have DJ Zullo, or if it's even rumored that it's going to be like Dan Hurley's not under consideration, we're going to have DJ on again because DJ he knows a lot about that situation and Dan Hurley. And I just think he seems to be very much a college coach, and I will just leave it at that. But who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe he would make a great transition to the NBA.
For sure.
All right. Andrew, you're here.
All I'm going to say is to what you're talking about with the awkwardness of Rick and whether or not Jalen would be like, I need you to retain my dad. That does speak to
that.
He might. I'm just saying he might want his dad around since that
might
has
want
been
it,
a relationship
but
that has been talked about for the last two and a half years. Like it's been part of the fabric of this team that Jalen Brunson and Rick Brunson. It's like a family affair here. Well, Uncle Tibbs just got fired. We got to see if Rick Brunson is around. And that would lean Johnny Bryant in my guesstimation, because then it's somebody that's already worked with Rick Brunson and is already part of the fabric and the culture of the team already. It is my 2 cents on it. That's all. There's a lot of important decisions that they now have to go through. All the names that you listed, I agree with both of you. It is a difficult decision to make. You know, it isn't a difficult decision to make. Going to Fanatics Fest on June 20th to the 22nd, where you can join us, the entire KFS crew. And folks, you can do it at a discount. Use promo code Knicks Film School 20 to get 20% off your tickets 1 day, 2 day, or 3 day. We will be there all 3 days. Use the KFS specific link in the description of this episode. It's pinned in the chat, or if you're listening later on the podcast, do it then. Use that link as well. Okay. Jeff,
real quick.
I interrupted you.
No, real quick. So New York Basketball just put out a good tweet listing the purported, because it was never officially reported, list of coaches the Knicks interviewed in 2020. I'm just going to go through them real quick. Tom Thibodeau, Jason Kidd, currently head coach of the Mavs. I think Frank Isola may have tweeted like he could maybe see something there. I don't know how that would go. Kenny Atkinson, don't think he's going anywhere. Mike Woodson, what's Mike Woodson up to right now?
I don't know. I know he's not.
Life is big, man.
Well, he's this big. I doubt. I would be very surprised if they went back to Woodson. Ime Udoka, pretty good head coach. Mike Brown, currently out of a job, unceremoniously fired in Sacramento. That would be, again, he's been around the block. Knows how to run an offense. I'll just leave it at that. Jamal Mosley, good head coach in Orlando. Will Hardy, everybody loves him in Utah. Chris Fleming, assistant coach with the Portland Trailblazers. Mike Miller, who they gave, I think, a cursory interview to because he was the head coach previously on an interim basis. And then Pat Delaney. Who is Pat Delaney?
Y'all made that name up.
I'm looking
Create
at
a coach.
Hold on.
That is a character from season 3 of The Office.
Assistant coach with the Toronto Raptors. I think that's who he is. Okay. That's it. Lead assistant with the Toronto Raptors. Okay. So we'll see.
We will see. Yes.
All right.
I apparently spelled Tibbs' name wrong in the description of this episode. I apologize, Tibbs.
That's a bad job.
Not my coach anymore, so I don't need to know.
Did you use the double B?
No, it was Tom Thibodeau.
That's
instead
hilarious.
of a B, it's a D. Yes. Listen, there's too much D as far as Tibbs is. You know what? I was going for a defense pun, and then I said words, and I realized that I shouldn't have gone that direction. So I'm just gonna let you say your final thoughts, Jeff.
Real quick on the Brunson thing. I don't know what message it would communicate if DiVincenzo could be traded, if Thibodeau could be fired, but Rick Brunson is somehow mandated to stay.
That's fair.
Just being fair. In the Leon is doing whatever it takes to bring a title to New York. That seems like a loophole that's steeped in nepotism that could, if things go south, be looked back on as a blind spot for. So I'll say that. And just my final thoughts once again, man. If Tibbs ends up still coaching and coaches a new team, whenever the next time he's in the Garden and he's shown on that big screen or announced, it should be nothing but standing ovations. Honestly, from this point forward, I don't care if he's coaching a rival. Anytime his name is announced, it should be met with an ovation, because the one fault you have with Tibbs is that he's Tibbs. And it's better to be a man with a code than with no code at all, because those type of people can't be trusted. And above all else, he had a code. He had principles that he stood on, and those were winning principles. Was he the coach that could take them over the hump? We'll never know. We'll never know. And I wonder if he feels good about standing on what he stood on his way out. Like if he said, hey, this is the way I do things. If I can't win this way and I'm gone, then so be it. If he's at peace with that, then it's all good. But I will say, if he does want to get back in the ring and coach again, you're going to have to be malleable, man. You either become lost to history or you make it. And by relying on old principles, it could be the former real quick. Like those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. If you don't look towards the future, you can become the forgotten history. So as far as he goes, once again, it's 1,000 salutes for him. I appreciate him. And I just hope that the faith that the front office is putting in this core of players and whoever comes next is rewarded with the title, because from this point forward, we have the baseline. It's Eastern Conference Final at the minimum. We're back to the 90s levels of expectations. Second round is whatever. You wake up and get to the second round at this point. Now it's get to the finals. The work is cut out for them, and we'll see what happens.
Well said, Jeff. Thank you for joining us tonight. This was great.
Yes, sir.
Quick programming note. Check out Jeff and Sean tomorrow at during Casual Friday, as John left the screen again. My bad. Check out Jeff and Sean tomorrow during Casual Friday at noon, and Benji and DJ for X's and O's at 8:30. That was just going to be their final thoughts on the season. Now it's their extended thoughts on Tom Thibodeau. My quick question before we get to Super Chats, John, do you think Tom Thibodeau will coach again?
Oh, God, no.
Do you think he's officially done?
In the NBA?
Yes. No, Little League. What do you think I'm asking?
I could see him going to coach like a grade school girls like rec league or something. No, Tom Thibodeau will never be a head coach in the NBA again.
Okay.
You could give me 50-1 odds, and I wouldn't bet any money on that.
I would agree with that. You don't have to dismiss the question outright. It was just a question that
I'm sorry.
a lot of people are asking. It's okay, John. You're allowed to do a podcast with somebody. It's okay. We're just having a conversation here.
I know. You're right to bring it up.
I would agree with you. I think this was his last coaching job. I think he's done. I think this is a mini retirement. He's also 67 years old.
Yeah, and that's
I don't know who's taking a new job anywhere else. He was also established in the Northeast. Like I think he's where he wants to be.
No, I think I'm sure he'd love to. I'm sure he'd love to. I'm sure he'd love the challenge again. To say that I'd be shocked is the understatement of the year.
What do you think is happening at Tarrytown right now? Like the full U-Haul to get his bed out and all of his refrigerator and the extra screens. Like this isn't just like a firing, it's an eviction.
I mean, I know you're making a joke, but I would. I just thought of the most inappropriate analogy that I'm not going to say out loud because it's going to make me look even more like a loser than I already am, which is hard. So, have you seen Sex and the City, the movie?
No, but go ahead.
So Big and Carrie split up. That's the premise of the. Sorry, spoiler alert for Sex and the City movie. They split up because Big gets cold feet at the wedding, and he can't reach Carrie on her cell phone because Charlotte's daughter put it in a bag and she couldn't find her phone, and it was a whole mishigas. Anyway, they go without talking for a very long time, and they had a shared apartment together, and then the lease on the apartment is up, or they sold the apartment or something. And Carrie realizes on the last day that she had left a pair of shoes, a really, really nice pair of shoes, even for Carrie, at the apartment. So she's like, oh, shit. So she goes back to the apartment to get the shoes. And who's there but Big? And he looks up and he says, I was going to get these to you. And then they have a very nice moment and they do something that I would hope that Leon Rose and Tom Thibodeau don't do, although to each their own. But the point is, it was a loving, nice remembrance of the relationship that once was, and it wasn't like Carrie walking in and like Big being like, yeah, get the F out of here. And then Carrie like, no, you get the F out of here. No, it was peaceful. It was in celebration of this thing that they had shared. So I would hope that even though this news came down, like they made this decision today, in my like dream world, like Leon and Tibbs and maybe a couple of the people just kind of like hung out at the office for a while, and we're just like kind of shooting the shit about old memories and whatnot.
So in your perfect world, Tibbs on his way out with his box of final things that he's walking
went to
out
get his clipboard, and Leon was like, I'm gonna get this to you.
Or it's like a frozen pizza and said, you want me to warm this up for you? No, wait,
Sure,
I know how you like it. Yeah, one of those types of things. Okay, we have people that want to chime in on the super chat. I will pop down for a little bit. Obviously, I'll jump up if necessary, but let's get to people that want to interact with you.
And thank you, everybody, for your patience. I know there's people that have been waiting patiently for some time, and we appreciate that. Okay. Knicks. Oh, is this? I'm just reading the name here. Okay, Jack Corcoran. Johnny Bryant is the choice. Knows the organization. Helped make the Cavs look like a wagon. Timing between him being a finalist for Phoenix and firing Tibbs is obvious. Maybe, Jack. I don't know. The only thing I would say in terms of, again, the things we assume, right? Like you are positing that Johnny Bryant was a major contributor in making the Cavs what they were this year. Maybe that's true. Or maybe Johnny Bryant has absolutely nothing to do with the Cavs looking like they did last year. We don't know. My hope is that Leon Rose knows the answer to that question. So we'll see. Manny Campos, what's going on, Manny? Curious that the front office knew it needed to make a change or needed to change something and realized they likely weren't going to make a major trade. Seems like it was either Tibbs or Cat. Again, I don't see that equivalency. The first part is a great question, where it's basically like the front office is like, well, we can't run this thing back. And the easiest thing to do is fire the coach. That does not strike me as a Leon Rose way of operating, given what we know about how this man conducts his business and goes about running this organization. I would also offer to you that based on the reporting that we have gotten, this seems to be very much about Tibbs. And again, if there were whispers about his job security before the playoffs, during the first round, during the conference semifinals, and obviously now, that's, to me, says this decision was made on its own, and they will worry about the roster when they worry about the roster. Thanks, Manny. Debo, what's going on, Debo? Salute to Tibbs for his efforts. Helped establish a winning culture and change the trajectory of the team. Torn between going established versus new blood, like Bryant, to help get 6 more playoff wins. Debo, I just had 2 people on here, right? One of them, Jeff J, was like, get me fresh blood. I don't want to retread. The other one, DJ Zullo, was like, you cannot hire fresh blood. You got to get someone who has head coaching experience. It just goes to show you how there are many different opinions about who should be the next coach of the Knicks. And I think I skew more with DJ's side of things, although I absolutely see where Jeff is coming from. But yeah. Thanks, Debo. Kevin Danishevsky. I'm assuming this is Kevin Danishevsky. Props to Tibbs for turning the franchise around, but this is the right move. When you're this close to a chip, it feeds. Front office needs to maintain flexibility. Hard with Tibbs' rigidity. The only thing I will say to that, Kevin, is you are saying that this is the right move. It may be half of the right move. We simply cannot call this the right move until we know the other half of it, who they hire. Because they could make a hire, and probably several hires, that would make this, or any one of several hires, that would make this the wrong move. And I want to say that in no uncertain terms. And I think DJ told you that a little while ago. And I think Benji just tweeted something to that effect. It cannot be overstated how massive the decision is. And to anybody who thinks out there that, oh, they just need to get rid of Tibbs, that was the most important thing. Who they end up bringing in to replace him isn't like I'm sure they'll hire someone fine. No. The most massive important decision that they can make coming up right here. Thanks, Kev. Johnny BK. What's going on, Johnny? Shocking yet expected. Bittersweet yet intriguing. Kudos to Leon for cojones to cut the cord. Forever thankful to Tibbs for his input in the revival, but it truly felt like the time has come to evolve and pass the torch. Hashtag here comes Johnny. So it seems like we got another vote for Johnny Bryant. I would imagine that he is going to be the people's choice, as it were. We'll see if he gets the job. Karl Anthony Towns tweeting out or Instagramming out a picture of him and Tibbs sitting in the practice facility. I'm just going to go out on a limb, and I literally have not heard word one or anything about this. I don't think Cat had any issue with Tibbs. And if I had to guess, I would guess Cat liked Tibbs for as much as their former history was not great. Just my 2 cents. Vintage Larry W.U. Woo, Jacob. It makes me nervous to fire Tom Thibodeau without having the next head coach locked. But at this point, I just trust Leon is cooking in the background. Again, a lot of faith being entrusted, in Leon Rose here. I would be surprised. Maybe very surprised. Would I be shocked? I don't know. I'd be very surprised if they did not have a very clear idea of which way they wanted to go, if not one specific person in mind, then a short list of people. And I say that, one, because firing a head coach with this, I mean, with all the things we've been talking about, and like not having any idea really of which way you want to go, to me would be maybe not the wisest idea. That's number one. And number two, do you know what tweet we haven't gotten, or what report we haven't gotten from anybody? Not a single one. Not a single beat reporter or national news media member. We haven't gotten the report or the tweet saying the New York Knicks are going to run an exhaustive search for their next head coach and are going to consider a wide breadth of candidates that includes former NBA head coaches, college coaches, assistant coaches, and internet, whatever bullshit. That has not been said, which leads me to believe that they are not going to conduct an exhaustive search for their next head coach, and that they already have a pretty good idea of who it's going to be, or at least a short list. So we'll see. Kevin O. Peterson. First off, thank you, Tibbs, for turning this franchise around. Would you consider Johnny Bryant the favorite for the job right now? No coincidence to me this happens after he's named a finalist for the Phoenix job. Yeah. Yeah, I think I would. Yeah, I think I would consider him the front runner. I don't know. Here's the thing. If it's Bryant, but they're like, well, we like Bryant. We think we want it to be Johnny Bryant, but we're not 100% sure we want it to be Johnny Bryant. We'd like to interview just a couple of people to make sure that we're making the right call. Well, by the time you do that, Johnny Bryant may have taken the Phoenix job. You know? So how's that going to work? I don't know. Chaw, what's going on, Chaw? Wright and Dante back. Infinity Gauntlet, please, Lord. Oh, Jay Wright. I got you. Yeah, I don't think you're gonna get that. Sorry, Chaw. Nicole Taylor, what's going on, Nicole? 1 to 10. How safe is Hart? Mitch. I don't think this changes Josh Hart's status as a future Knick 1 iota. Mitch, I mean, I don't know. You could argue that he was like the most consistently excellent player in the playoffs for the Knicks besides Jalen Brunson. I like, are they going to find a head coach who comes in and is like, yeah, you know what? I really liked what we saw defensively from that Karl Anthony Towns at the 5. I think we could really capitalize on that. Give me more of that. You can get rid of this Mitchell Robinson. No, any coach is going to come in and probably adore the fact that they have a guy like Mitchell Robinson to support the defensive infrastructure, you know. So I don't think this changes anything regarding them. Mark, is this our Mark? What's going on, Mark? Huge thank you and nod of admiration for Tibbs for being a pivotal part of the turnaround. Question, do you think this makes it more likely major or minor roster moves be made now? If I have to pick, I would say I think it makes it more likely that they do not make a major trade, although I'm not ruling it out. I'm but we'll see. Jack McMick, feeling sad and more sentimental than I expected, but feels like it was time. The offense and chemistry getting worse as the season went on ultimately falls on Tibbs. Maybe. I mean, he's that coach, right? So, you know, still a top 5 offense. Coach. Wait, what is this?
This comment wasn't saying still a top 5 offense. It's still a top 5 Knicks coach of all time.
Knicks coach of all time. Sorry, I can't read. Yeah, no. I agree. That's not even a question. Yeah, to me, he's, you know, there's a great argument that he goes on the Knicks Mount Rushmore of coaches along with Red Holzman, Pat Riley, and Jeff Van Gundy. I think it's a pretty good argument. Thank you. Duran, visual variant. What's going on, Duran? Thank you for the very generous contribution here. Tibbs says the game tells you what to do. I've always hid weak defenders with zone defense. Tibbs never used it, sticking to principles. His philosophy is reactionary, not proactive, and he's stubborn. The game demands adaptability. I think that's a fair criticism. I think it's probably a little bit over the top. I do think... See, here's the thing, right? They were switching against Boston from jump. Literally. From the first minute of that series, they're switching. It all comes down to what Tibbs believes. if something is not working, but Tibbs believes it should work based on, well, it'll work if this thing and that this other thing. You could sit here and talk to him about, well, Tom, like, yeah, but like this thing and that thing, like they don't actually seem to be happening. And then Tibbs will be like, okay, so why aren't they happening? Well, they're not happening for this reason or that reason. Well, those reasons aren't good enough. Again, are you executing it properly? Is the effort there? That's where you get into the danger zone. He's not going to be proactive to the level of he's going to see something and not working, and he's going to be like, you know what? Let me stop trying to figure out why this isn't working, and let's just scrap it because I'm sick of looking at it, and everybody else is sick of looking at it. He's not going to do that. He's not going to do that. So that is not to say that he is purely reactive, and he is not proactive. He's actually very proactive at times. But again, it has to pass his smell test. And that's where the stubbornness comes in. Thanks, Theron. Armand Bernadette, what's going on? Armand, as much as I think this was the right move, thank you, Tom. Yeah, no, I know you do think it was the right move, Armand. Jess M, what's going on, Jess? Tibbs brought us back. I'm slightly worried. Any chance this has ripple effects among players? Do you imagine Brunson was consulted? I know he was very vocal in support of Tibbs. Would hate to compromise Brunson in any way. I don't know. If I had to guess, do I think they went like literally Leon Rose called Jalen Brunson and was like, "Hey, we want to do this. Can you give us your blessing?" No, I don't think that happened. I think they probably made an internal, or they probably decided, realized, whatever, that Brunson would be okay with this based on maybe something Jalen said or just what they think of Jalen. I don't know. But that's what I would guess. The Rick Brunson situation is, again, just utterly fascinating to me. And maybe they have a plan in place for that. So we'll see. Juanon, what's going on? Juanon, how are you? John, I really, really, all caps, hope we don't live to regret today. There are people in Wright's camp who expect him here, so we'll see what happens there. But, man, I don't like this or that. Hashtag fired Tibbs. You made my day when I saw that, Juanon, earlier. And thank you for the kind words in regards to the newsletter. And by the way, if anybody, I know I've been talking for 2 hours and 20 minutes here. I haven't really gotten into my own personal, feelings, I guess, for lack of a better word, or emotions when it comes to someone that I know a lot of people have associated with me with over the years. I will say a few words about Tom Thibodeau on the personal side before I get off of this live stream. But if you want to really read my extended thoughts and why I am the way I am with Tibbs and why I've been the way I've been, feel free to check out the Knicks Film School newsletter that I just dropped 4 hours ago, 3 hours ago, whatever it is, which you could find, of course, on Substack. As for Jay Wright, again, I mean, listen, if that's the move, talk about a big swing. But yeah, man, I hope they don't. You know what? I'm not gonna live in fear today, because if they hire someone else and this whole thing goes up in smoke, you know what? It wasn't meant to be. Like, if this team is a championship team, they'll figure out a way to be a championship team. And if they just don't have that gear, then they just don't have that gear. You know, life will find a way or it won't. Thanks, Juanon. Sam Garcia, what's going on, Sam? Tibbs led us out of the wilderness and down the path of respectability. Jalen Brunson wouldn't be here if not for him. Forever grateful. Yep. As you should be, Sam, as you should be. Mekki, the other night wasn't enough for you, apparently. My goodness gracious. Thank you so much. Bummed and excited at the same time. I can't say I'm bummed. I'm not bummed. I am excited, oddly enough. And if I took the time to actually think about it, I would and really hone in on like what is likely to happen and what could happen. I'd probably be more nervous than excited. I am excited right now. I'm excited. I'm excited for the opportunity to not reset things, but to like give things a jolt, you know? And as I say that, I realize that that is the most like, you know, dream a little dream, naive fan point of view, because again, there's no more exciting moment in any fan's life than at the moment that you're like, oh, we're gonna hire a new head coach. Awesome. You know, or before you make a lottery pick, you know, or really those two things. And like so often it goes wrong. it goes wrong so more often than it goes right. You know? But all that being said, I am excited. I can't lie. I am excited. Lingering separate note from the Pacers series and third quarters. Brunson always came out when the first looking to score. Should have had the same mentality to start the third. Would have been a different series. That's a good point, Mekki. I hadn't thought of that. You know what they did in the beginning of the third quarter instead of Jalen Brunson having a scoring attitude? They came out looking like, I don't know, bunch of hungover college freshmen. And look, you put that on Tibbs as well. Why didn't he have his guys more prepared? I read the numbers. I think they're in the last live stream. They were -6 point something or -7 point something per, you know, net rating in the third quarters of the playoffs. Like that sucks. That sucks. So I don't know. Thanks, Mekki. Jack McMick, never thought I'd say this. Shout out Dolan for being down to eat $30 million after making the Eastern Conference Finals and trusting the front office to decide what they think is right. Yeah, I mean, Dolan's never been afraid to spend if the situation warrants it. He absolutely deserves credit for that. 100%. Iceman Sham, what's going on, Iceman? All of us will be forever grateful for Tibbs, but my first thoughts was, what does this mean for Rick Brunson? We talked about that already. And is this new coach going to find a way to get this offense to what it was before New Year's? I think you raise a great question. What's the biggest deciding factor for picking the next head coach? Is it what they have envisioned for the offense, or is it what they have envisioned for the defense? Just boiling down to the on-court stuff, not like the communication off-court stuff. Just boiling it down to the on-court stuff. What's the priority? What's the priority? What if a new head coach comes in and says, yeah, here's how I'm going to make this the best offense in the league. And there's zero doubt in my mind that we're going to be the best offense in the league. Defensively, I think we could be better than average. I think we could scrape the top 10. And I think if we do that with the offense that I'm going to instill, I think we'll be good enough to win a championship. Will they go for that? Or are they looking for someone who's going to come in and be like, listen, man, if we don't defend, nothing else matters. You know, like the offense, like we got great offensive players. Here's what I think here are some things that we could do to make it better. But defensively, that's where this team needs to focus. And here's how I'm going to get them to a top 5 level. I don't know. I'm very curious, though. And I don't know what the right answer is, to be clear. Deadward 604. What's going on, Deadwards? This was the right move, and I was in the Fire Tips camp, but I'm forever grateful for what this man did to bring the Knicks back from the doldrums. Good. I'm glad you're grateful. Jeff Guitars. What's going on, Jeff? My KFS fandom started with the We Here season. This is a bittersweet day. Hopefully, we look back at this as a turning point and not a day we regret losing our best coach since Jeff Van Gundy. Let's go, Knicks. Well, there's no dispute he's the best head coach that they've had in since Jeff Van Gundy. 20 years passed in between Tom Thibodeau being hired and Jeff Van Gundy being fired, or 19 years, I should say. So that's a lot of time. Went through a lot of head coaches in that time. A lot of A lot of really good head coaches. And you know what all of those head coaches have in common? With the exception of Kurt Rambis. With the exception of Kurt Rambis. And maybe the exception of Isaiah Thomas. But every other one of those coaches, you know what they have in common? The day they were hired, oh boy, there was confetti raining down on the streets when those head coaches were. Oh my goodness gracious. I remember it like it was yesterday. The day that David Fizdale was hired. The amount of celebration and anticipation. And oh my goodness, take that for data. Pictures of his wife, rubbing up against him in the club. You believe this? This is our head coach, man. It's our head coach, guys. How cool is this? How fun. Mike Connolly was willing to go to bat for David Fizdale when they were talking about firing him from Memphis. Man. Yeah, it didn't work out so good. Didn't work out so good. Thanks, Jeff. Hush what's going on, Hush? Grateful for Tibbs, but it was time. The next head coach got big shoes to fill. Would you all be surprised if McCall came into the year a much different player? No, in fact, I'd be shocked if he's not a lot better next year. I think of all the players that I expect to come in and just look very different for one reason or another, Mikal Bridges is first on the list. I don't think him and Tom, I just don't think they ever saw eye to eye. And again, it has nothing to do with the minutes. That comment had nothing to do with minutes. He made the comment he knew would cause a storm. And he got exactly what he wanted out of it. Chetnik, what's going on, Chetnik? Tibbs didn't miss foul shots or turn the ball over. This team is a bunch of losers. I mean, I think that might be a little bit harsh, but to each their own. Thanks, Chetnik. Jason M., what's going on, Jason? I view this move as a vote of confidence in the current roster. They will add depth, optionality, and a new approach to get the best out of this group. I hope you're right, Jason. I hope you're right. The Raving Rover. What's going on, Raving Rover? How you doing? He treated the regular season like the playoffs. That's great for culture building. But this season was about info gathering. He didn't understand that. Love and respect Tibbs. Sad to see him go, but it was time as long as we nail the next hire. Yes, that last part is key. As long as we nail the next hire. Did Tibbs not understand that the regular season was about info gathering? If you go find a religious man, like a really religious man, and then imagine you showed that religious man definitive proof that God did not exist. Like proof, like incontrovertible proof that God did not exist. That man might understand what you are showing him. He would not believe it. I'm quite certain Tom Thibodeau understood exactly what was on his plate this year and understood the stakes and understood that there were things that could be done to maybe give himself, different looks at things, different pieces of evidence. To ask Tom Thibodeau to coach a game in a way in which he is not doing everything in his power to win that basketball game is akin to asking a believer in God to stop believing. Maybe more so. It is hardwired into his DNA, and it will never change, and there was nothing that was ever going to happen that would get it to change. And that's a simple truth. And that's why he was the right man for the job 5 years ago, and it is arguably why he was no longer the right man for the job today. Lunas Emirat. What's going on, Lunas? Do you guys have a top 3 and preferred new head coach? We'll always love Tibbs for everything, but it's hard not to get too excited about what a different head coach can do with this offense. I have a preferred. I'll be honest with you. I don't have a single person who I'm like, yeah, I want that person as the next head coach. I really don't. I'm just gonna say it because I'm not gonna be able to hide it if he gets hide it if he gets hired. I'm scared shitless about Johnny Bryant. I'm scared shitless, and I maybe he's gonna be a great head coach. Boy, do I hope I'm wrong. I'm scared about that. Chris Quinn is a name in Miami that, like, he's been like that next guy rumored for like so long. I like that would be a guy that would at least be. I don't know. That's an interesting name. Yeah, and I said some other guys before that like would be uninspiring. Like I know there's a bunch of guys I don't want them to hire. I don't really feel strongly that I definitely do want them to hire, someone or another. I don't think I'd hate Jenkins. I don't think I would. Jenkins is like, I wouldn't hate Jenkins. I wouldn't hate that. Yeah. Thanks, Lunas. Bruno TP24. What's going on, Bruno? About firing a coach after achieving the first Eastern Conference Finals in 25 years. For me, it's clear the Knicks achieved Eastern Conference Finals despite Tibbs, not because of it. So because they fired him, it makes it clear to you that they achieved that despite him and not because of him? All right. Well, it's an interesting way to go about your logic there. Thanks, Bruno. Fern Rodriguez, what's going on, Fern? For me, I can't help but compare Tibbs to Tom Coughlin, where Tom Coughlin finally changed his ways, which resulted in a title, and Tibbs just could never change his ways. So a change had to be made. Yeah, I mean, a lot of comps between the Toms over the last couple of years, especially. I mean, it's at this point, it's fair. It's fair. How could you? I could sit here and I could argue, that's a silly comparison for this reason. No, I think it's on its face. It's very fair. Thanks, Fern. Hush Zoo, what's going on, Hush? I find it odd when doing the rundown about Tibbs, Begley mentioned Cat along with if he doesn't get traded, which makes me believe he will be shopped, even though we fired Tibbs. Crazy offseason start. Again, I'm sorry to keep going back to this. I have no idea where this notion, where is this notion coming from? That it was either Cat or Tibbs. Did someone like pose this out there? Is there something? Is there like game tape I'm missing? Is there some but smarter person than me out there who's like, here's why it has to be either Tom Thibodeau or Karl Anthony Towns? I get like the reason, like generally the reasons people I think are saying this because they're like, oh well, Tibbs didn't fully utilize Cat on offense and he was a disaster on defense. Okay, again, where's the coach that's going to make Cat a defender? Where's the proof that Cat didn't like playing for Tibbs? Where's the proof that Cat was a poor defender because of Tibbs? And like, if you want to go with like, well, yeah, but the offense. Okay, again, Karl Anthony Towns has been for as talented as he is, and I talked about this on the Game 6 live stream afterwards, has been a maddening offensive player to try to get the most out of when he is not the focal point of your offense. Maybe the solution is to make him the focal point of your offense. I don't know. I guess that's an idea. Jalen Brunson is here. So again, I don't in the slightest understand where this is coming from or why this has become a thing. And I absolutely expect them to look to see if they can move on from Cat because do I need to really say why? Like Cat's a wonderful player. He's a top, 25, 30 player in the league. I know he made all NBA and that's top 15, but like really, if you're going down the list of like, okay, who are the guys that we want on our team if we want to win 16 games in April, May, and June? Where does Cat rank on that list? Is he in the top 25? Is he in the top 30? Is he in the top 40? Is he in the again, you could get a wide range of opinions, you know? Shit, who would you rather have on your team if you're trying to win 16 playoff games? Isaiah Hartenstein or Karl Anthony Towns? Now, if you're thinking like, oh, well, I might want to have Hartenstein. Okay, where does Hartenstein rank in that list of players? Is he in the top 50 of players you'd want if you're trying to win a championship, trying to win 16 games? So, yeah, I absolutely do expect them to explore the market for Karl Anthony Towns. Are they going to get anywhere with it? I have no idea. But I did find it interesting that there was a report earlier today, I forget from who, that said that Phoenix is looking for a center for Kevin Durant. You don't say. Thanks, Hush. Brian Valderrama, what's going on, Brian? Tibbs was doomed the minute the front office gave him the cat problem. I will just say what I have heard and what I believe, which is that I think Tibbs embraced the Karl Anthony Towns trade. I'm sure he had his fears, but my understanding is he embraced it. Next up, Chris Carter. Oh, goodness. John, my dad passed away from cancer about 10 days before your dad did. My condolences. We're both children of Knicks fans. I'm sure they're both somewhere shaking their heads. Collapses to the Pacers, firing coaches. Is this 2025 or 1996? Chris, man, you've been such a valuable part of, first of all, thank you for the generosity. You've been such a valuable part of this show for so long. You're a classic example of someone who I could say wholeheartedly, I don't always agree with, but I always respect where you're coming from. And I mean, I could, I love your passion. I love the way you watch the team and think about the team and support the team and everything. And obviously, I'm appreciative of the way you've supported us here at Knicks Film School for years. I'm so sorry to hear about your dad. Yeah, well, I haven't thought about what my dad would think about this move. My guess is he would probably have the standard, they fired him after he made the Eastern Conference Finals reaction. That would be my guess. But I don't know for sure. As far as your last part is the part that's really hitting me. Collapses to the Pacers and firing coaches is this 2025 or 96. The thing that I've not struggled with today, but I've been cognizant of, is the notion that this is same old Knicks and that this is Dolan rearing his ugly head and it is not doing the thing, not doing the smart thing, that it's not doing the patient thing, that it's not doing the thing that a sensible organization would do. Because all of a sudden there's expectations, and when there's expectations, patience goes from up here to whoop all the way down here. And with all due respect to every fan who is like, this was the right move at the right time and this and that, like, again, all due respect to every one of you, and I mean that, like, I respect that opinion because I probably hold that opinion myself, push comes to shove. I don't give that doesn't comfort me in the slightest. If every single Knick fan fully endorsed this, I don't even know if that would make me feel better about it. And I include myself in this group, to be clear. I don't know what they know. I don't know what their experience has been over the last 6 weeks, 6 months, 5 years. I don't know who else is out there. I don't know their intel on who else is out there. There's a lot that we don't know. And what I am clinging to is the hope/belief that, but it's not even a hope. It is or even a belief. It is a belief. Just because a coach gets you to the Eastern Conference Finals does not mean that coach should come back the next year. And I do think that there exist valid reasons within the organization to make a move. But I am uncertain as to like the nature of those reasons. Obviously, there's a part of me that is uncertain as to like, okay, you had your reasons. How valid are they really? How important are they really in respect to or with respect to other potential considerations? And then the biggest thing by far, the 8,000-pound elephant in the room, or however the fuck much elephants weigh. Who's next? Who's next? How sure are you about what's next? You know? So we'll see. Thank you so much, Chris. Again, I'm very sorry for your loss. Alex, what's going on, Alex? Thank you, Tibbs. Alex, what did I tell you? What did I message you? It was yesterday? I meant it. This has been on the whole, a fantastic 5 years, including pushing the front office to draft Deuce. I'm not a fan of some members of the front office. I hope they weren't the voices that pushed Tibbs out. Looking at you, Worldwide West, and Gerson. I mean, look, he may be pulling this out of his ass, his very tan ass, because he's in Florida now. But Berman, I think it was Berman, Mark, or GMAC, correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was Berman who tweeted out it was Worldwide West and Brock Aller, who were maybe not the biggest Tibbs fans. So do with that, what you will. I ultimately, I'm putting my faith in Leon, but not in the way that people are like, yeah, I trust Leon. I trust Leon in this specific sense. That man knows how to run an organization. And I don't mean a basketball organization. I mean an organization of people, a group, a collective, where there is a goal and there is a need for everybody to get on the same page to achieve that goal. I trust that man knows what he's doing when it comes to whether he was running an agent, a law firm, an agency, or basketball team. And if in his estimation, he saw this situation as something that could not be reclamated and continuing to have in the effort to continuing to have a healthy organization, I trust him to make that decision specifically. So, we'll see what happens. Ja So Focus, what's going on, Ja? Traded picks for Macau, traded for Cat, and fired Tom Thibodeau. One of these moves will define Leon's success or failure. The last two might be connected. Well, I mean, it's all kind of getting connected. The Bridges, again, I'm just going to go back to the Bridges one because you traded for a guy who, there were you traded for a guy who you didn't know for sure was going to fit in with your culture in the way it was, probably in the hopes that your culture would have an impact on him in a positive way. And if anything, it seems like the opposite happened. I don't, or not to say that Mikal Bridges was like the downfall of their culture, or even that their culture had a downfall, but it just seems as if, again, to me, I don't think I'm saying anything out of turn. It seems that the culture was not the same as last year. Mikal was one of the new pieces in, and it doesn't seem like he was ever quite happy here. Maybe he is now. Maybe he's happy. Maybe he's thrilled today. Maybe he's having a party right now. I don't know. And you made that bet. And now today, Tom Thibodeau gets fired. Are the two things connected? I don't know. Thanks, Joe. Rick F., what's going on, Rick? The process and timing on this decision is really intriguing. Feels a bit like the NFL, where coaches are fired right away to not miss out on top candidates, like those talking to Phoenix. Maybe. We've talked about it already. Possible. Absolutely possible. Thanks, Rick. Jessica, what's going on, Jess? I know you've always been a Tibbs fan along with me. Berman probably dropped a ton of EXT and is dancing with alligators in a kiddie pool, peeing on pictures of Tibbs. Juanon needs a new hashtag. That's quite a visual, Jessica. Thank you for that. Sam from upstate. What's going on, Sam from upstate? Thank you, Tibbs. Love it. Love it, Sam. Ben Kim Gerby. Hello, Ben. I'm old. No time for LOL Knicks 52. Or, sorry, LOL Knicks 2. Dolan in player meetings, talk me off the ledge. Don't make me a Mets fan. Hashtag Hail Tibbs. Yeah, I mean, look, he's the owner. So why would he be in player meetings if not to ask the players specifically about Tom Thibodeau? And why would he want to ask the players specifically about Tom Thibodeau? Probably because he had it in his mind at the end of the season that, hey, we might want to look at the head coach. Here's what we know. We know that this was not like, again, okay, there's differing reports out there about how, whether it was Dolan, whether it was Leon, whether it was 80-20 one way, 80-20 the other way, 50-50, the whole thing. Dolan was involved in this decision, and not only for Leon to come to him and be like, we need your sign off on this $30 million check. No. Because what is the alternative? What's the alternative? James Dolan, for the first time since he hired Leon Rose, asked to be in player exit meetings so he could sit there, not ask questions, and then after the player meetings were over, not give his input about anything that was said, or, here's a fun one, give his input about what was said and give his opinion, and then Leon Rose to go to James Dolan, the man who pays his salary, say, thank you, James, we appreciate your opinion. We're going to go make our own decision now. Is that what we think happened? Like, Dolan had input here. Now, Ben, that scares the shit out of you. To other people, the vast majority of whom I would imagine were probably wanting Tom Thibodeau to lose his job, those people don't seem to mind that much. At the end of the day, to me, Dolan has always remained the boogeyman, and I am very respectful of the chaos that he caused and can cause. I'm not beside myself today, if only because I believe that if Leon Rose felt in his bones that Tom Thibodeau should remain the head coach of this team, Tom Thibodeau would still be the coach of this team. I believe that, maybe naively. And God knows I've been naive before, but I do believe that. Thanks, Ben. Will Oliver, what's going on, Will? Bittersweet. Thankful for Tibbs, but time for a change. All right. Thanks, Will. Andrew Garcia, as a UConn fan, I could see the Dan Hurley fit. Maybe he seems like an incredibly fiery guy. You know, I don't know. You got to be willing to open up your checkbook. I know that. Thanks, Andrew. Poe, is Jay Wright our final Infinity Stone? Yeah, I mean, again, it would be a nice story. Look, the man could coach. We know that. The man could coach. I don't know. Maybe. Jessica with another one. And it seems to me you lived your life like a candle in the wind. We're singing eulogies here. Thanks, Jess. Danishevsky with another one. One thing we do know about Johnny Bryant is that he seems like a good communicator. Randall credited him for his turnaround from 22-23. I think that's important. You're right, Kevin. It's incredibly important. Being a good communicator is an important quality in a head coach. It is a quality that Tom Thibodeau, while he may have improved at it over time, it is not something that he ever, I think, got to a level of, let's call, proficiency at. And I think he got to a really nice situation with this team, because with this team, and really with last year's team, let me rephrase that. With last year's team, he didn't need to do a whole lot of communicating, because when you have a Jalen Brunson and a Josh Hart and an Isaiah Hartenstein and a Dante DiVincenzo on your team, and even a Julius Randle, who him and Tibbs very clearly had a understanding between the two of them. Like, there's not a whole lot that needs to be said. But fast forward to this year, and all of a sudden you've swapped some of those pieces out for some other pieces. Well, now maybe you needed the communication. What I will say, Kevin, communication is important. I don't know if I was to rank my top 10 qualities of an NBA head coach, would communication be on the top 10? Would it be on my top 20? Would it be in my top 50? I don't know. It'd be higher than top. I don't know where it would be. It'd be somewhere on the list. But the point is that there's like so many things that need to matter. I'm sure Johnny Bryant is a lovely man and a really good communicator. That's awesome. I really hope that there's a lot more to him. And I'm sure there is. Is it going to be enough if he's hired here? Well, we'll find out. Parrish Duggar, what's going on, Parrish? John, Tibbs kept losing home playoff games. Tibbs lost game 1 as the manager of the team, or of the game team. We're pursuing a star, won't play for Tibbs. It's Bryant. Maybe it's Bryant. Maybe they are pursuing a star. Maybe that had a little bit to do with their thinking, although I don't think it was like that black and white. Do I think that they, in their considerations, were like, well, we know certain players don't want to come here and play for him? I don't know. The home playoff game thing, yeah, maybe factored in. I mean, look, James Dolan, he's sitting there on the baseline for all these games. Doesn't like when his fans go home happy. He wants happy customers. Got a lot of unhappy customers there in the playoffs, so, Thanks, Parrish. Sob78, thank you for the contribution, Sob. Kevin O. Peterson with another one. I could see Tibbs still coaching in the NBA. Don't be surprised if he latches on as a lead assistant for a young head coach like Mazzulla or Chauncey Billups. He'd be awesome for a team like the Charlotte Hornets. As a lead assistant, I'm assuming you're saying. Can Tom Thibodeau be a number 2? Do you think that man is capable of being a number 2? After he's been the number 1 for 15 years? Could he be a number 2? I don't know. We'll see. Jay Vertical, what's going on, Jay? There is a lot of value in knowing what you're getting on a night-to-night basis. It may be gone for now or may be gone forever. Stability, continuity is gone. It was necessary, but at what cost? A ring. Well, we'll see if they get the ring. Was it necessary? I don't know. The evidence had built up to the level where it seems more likely than not that if it wasn't necessary, it was like strongly suggested by the evidence, and again, we don't know that. We don't know that. We see what we see from the outside, but that's what I always. Anytime I talked about Tibbs, I always the same thing. Always came down to we don't know what we don't know. Thanks, Jay Vertical. Vintage Larry Wu. It's Office Dice Yoshimoto. I mean, Dice has been the Summer League coach for years. I don't know that I would get, Dice is like ready to step up to the number 1 seat. That would feel a little bit like, Chris Moltisanti taking over Tony's job. But, yeah, you never know. Takeru Kobayashi. I think I got that right. Who is the dark horse, 0 coaching experience hire a la Redick, Nash, Kidd, Chauncey? I have 0 reasoning, but could we kick the tires on Pablo Prigioni? I could sit here and I could do a quick Google search and give you a bunch of names. It would be pulling it out of my ass. I don't have anyone that is like I haven't already mentioned. Pablo, obviously, really good Nick. Seems like a really highly thought of guy. Seems very energetic. I don't know. I don't know. Look, there are people out there, but again, is that the way you're going to go here? Is that the way you should go here with a veteran locker room? Are you going to, in New York, are you going to go with a first-time head coach who has never had the job before? Actually, that hold on. That makes me wonder, when is the last time the Knicks had hired a head coach with 0 experience? Looking at it right now. Mike Miller was an interim head coach. That doesn't count. Derek Fisher. Duh. Derek Fisher had 0 coaching experience. That was Phil Jackson hire. That I don't think that went too well. I could be wrong. I'm sure I could look that up and see if I'm right about that, but I don't think that went terribly well. Before that, Kurt Rambis had coaching experience. Woodson had coaching experience. D'Antoni had coaching experience. Isaiah Thomas had coaching experience. Larry Brown had coaching experience. Lenny Wilkins had some coaching experience. Herb Williams was interim. Chaney had coaching experience. Jeff Van Gundy had no prior head coaching experience. So Jeff Van Gundy, that worked out quite well. Again, hired was originally on an interim basis because he was assistant when Don Nelson got fired, and then ended up keeping the job. So I don't know if that factors in. Don Nelson had coaching experience. Riley, yes. Stu Jackson. I actually don't know if Stu Jackson had prior head coaching experience. He did not. So Jackson didn't. That did not go great. And then we don't have to go back any further. That's enough. Sheldon Blackman. What's going on, Sheldon? How you doing? These same fans will have Rose's head on a platter for firing Tibbs if Rose doesn't get it right. This was the best coach since Riley. I mean, I think him versus Van Gundy is an interesting conversation. I will go with Van Gundy, and again, this is me saying that. I mean, Sheldon, you're saying the quiet part out loud. Everybody's excited about the next head coach until the first 3-game losing streak. And then it's blame the coach, because it's what fans always do. They blame the coach. It's what I've been saying for years. It's fine to do it. It's fine to critique coaches. It's healthy to critique coaches. I love that we have graduated from 3 years ago with me slamming my head around on the desk every night, just saying, no, you cannot say bad things about the head coach, to now we have people like DJ and Benji, having leading intelligent X's and O's conversations about, all right, here's why this thing is this, and pointing out, all right, we could have done this differently. We could have done that differently. And here's the evidence of that. That's healthy. That's all good stuff. So again, critique is fine and fair, but it's, for me, the part that always gets under my skin is the first gut reaction every time is it's the head coach's fault, when the reality of the situation is, when you lose, there's a lot of factors that go into it. Some of which we might see, and many of which we don't see. So, yeah, of course it's going to be the case with the next head coach, and the next head coach after that, and the next head coach after that. A couple more from Sheldon. Tibbs was out on the court making boneheaded fouls, turning over the basketball 8 times in a quarter. Yeah. Yeah. Can't gut the team for Giannis or Durant. Well, I don't think they have the assets to trade for Giannis, but I agree with Zach Lowe's stance from his pod the other day. As for Durant, I think it's possible. I do not think you will have to gut the team for Durant. I think there is probably a feasible Durant trade out there, but we'll see. Thanks, Sheldon, so much. Jay Vertical with another one. Thank you for the generosity, Jay. Have to think if the Knicks won game 1 and went on to win the series, Tibbs is here next year. Yeah. I completely, yes. I mean, we said the same thing about before, if they won the Boston series, right? Who would have thought that Tibbs could be fired, especially if you were like, yeah, and they made it 6 games against Indiana. We would have said the same thing. So who knows? I think he would have been, but you never know. Maybe it was their only chance to let him go. Not sure if this was all the way fair. Won't sit right unless we win a championship. Yeah, no, this is a successful move if you win a championship. If you don't win a championship, this is the wrong move. Same thing with the Bridges trade, same thing with the Cat trade. Thanks, Jay Vertical. Deadwards 604. My brother texted me earlier suggesting Jeff Van Gundy. It's not going to happen. I doubt it, but to be frank, he has kind of eased his way back into the league after leaving ESPN. Thoughts? I might be more shocked if Jeff Van Gundy's the next coach of the Knicks than I would be if Tom Thibodeau gets another head coaching job in the NBA. Vince Yako, what's going on? Vince, forever grateful for Tibbs, but Johnny Bryant is a must. Okay, so we got another vote of confidence in Johnny Bryant. Here we go. Longtime KC. I'm confused. You're the president of the Tibbs fan club. I've been very vocal about him being the right guy, going back at people that ripped him, and now that he's fired, you're okay with it and not even upset. So let me, you know what, Andrew, can you put this back up as the last super chat when I get done? Brad Schenker, what's going on, Brad? Shout out to Tibbs, man. I think it was necessary, but I'm sad all the time. What a great era. Love to Tibbs. We will never forget what he did for us. Nor should we.
Sad all the same.
What did I say?
All the time.
All the time. I
don't think Brad is sad all the time.
I hope he's not sad all the time. That would be dreadful. What a terrible existence that would be.
Probably how Tibbs exists.
I was about to say, you know who exists that way? No, he's always miserable. Well, sad, miserable. I mean,
those are synonyms. There you go.
Synonyms. Yeah.
Yep.
Sorry. Thank you, Brad. You're a wizard guy. Or you're a wizard Gary. Again, why can't I read tonight? That is very, maybe the season's over and I've lost all my faculties. My 2 cents is okay to move on, but would have loved Tibbs to stay in the front office. I had heard something about that a little while back, and yeah, I thought I'm again, like the notion that Tibbs, like they would have come to him and be like, we don't want you to be the head coach anymore, but we really want you to stay aboard. Something about that didn't ever pass the smell test for me. Anyway, he's a good evaluator of talent and crazy hard worker. Okay. Next up, Jazz Williams. So, one team fired a coach with 9 games left. Another fired a coach just days before the end of the season. Another traded its superstar. Who traded its superstar? What am I forgetting?
The Dallas Mavericks traded
that's
Luka
right.
Doncic.
Yeah. And now New York, who fired Tibbs after the conference finals appearance. Make it make sense. Oh, it's easy. There's more pressure to win in the NBA than ever before. Parity has teams believing that they are one, X, Y, or Z thing away from being right there. And it's the parity, it's the money. I know money and the head coach thing, like what does that have to do with anything? But like, Supermax salaries, like second apron, your windows are shorter, you got to get it right. There's no, like, the patience that you could display once upon a time. Again, the one you always bring up is Jerry Sloan, right? Jerry Sloan was a coach for whatever it was, 20 some odd years, never won a championship. They kept that team together for however long. You can't do that. You can't keep, Karl Malone and John Stockton together I guess if you have 2 special players, you can, but it's so hard, and you definitely can't keep teams together. You can't keep teams being a contender. The NBA has literally, the last CBA was designed to ensure the fact that contenders would get broken up after a period of 3, 4, 5, whatever years. That's what it was designed to do. The owners wanted this. And as a result, you get all this. This is what you get. So, congratulations, Adam. We did it. Okay. Iceman Sham. To add on to what you guys mentioned earlier, I think the microscope Bridges was under should be 3 times bigger since he was a big factor in the meetings. I mean, look, who knows? We don't know. We don't know for sure. Nobody knows anything for sure. But anyway, okay. So before I get to this last super chat, let me just say, Fred, if you're still watching, you said you got a name here. What's the name? I don't know. And then I got How can I put this? I guess there's some noise about Jay Wright around right now. Is that Andrew? Is there noise about Jay Wright?
Not that I've heard, but not gonna pretend like I've looked. I'll look now while you read the super chat.
Maybe there's more to the Jay Wright stuff than I initially suspect, or maybe I don't know. Maybe they're actually going to try. Let's say that. Maybe they're going to try. We'll see if how far that gets them. Maybe it doesn't get them very far at all. Okay, so longtime KC, you're confused because I'm the president of the Tibbs fan club and have been very vocal about him being the right guy. And I have gone back at people that have ripped him, and now I'm not upset that he's fired. Let me first address your actual points here, which is that I did believe Tibbs was the right guy for the job. I believed it with all my heart from really the day he took over. I bought into everything he was selling. In terms of his no bullshit. No, and like every coach like tries to be no bullshit. They try to act no bullshit. With Tibbs, it's no act. It's no act. It's just absolutely zero room for bullshit. And I referenced it in the piece that I wrote earlier today for Knicks Film School newsletter on Substack. But I always think back to an interview that Taj Gibson gave. It was Ian Begley was there and I was there in the locker room when Tibbs' name first surfaced. Mike Miller was the head coach. And Taj Gibson went on this extended soliloquy. I still have the voice recording somewhere on my phone. About all the reasons why Tibbs, could make it work. But the point that's one of the things that stood out to me and has stood out to me more and more over the years is you have to be willing to accept the coaching. If you're not willing to accept the coaching, you forget about it. And I think Tibbs was fortunate in that first year that there were enough guys on that team who understood, and maybe it helped that Taj Gibson was there so we could tell guys firsthand. And then Rose came aboard, and Rose, everybody respected Rose, right? Everybody respected Derrick Rose. And Derrick Rose is another disciple who will say, listen, this fucking guy is insane, but if you listen to him, will win, and B, he'll make you a better player. And there was enough buy-in that it got going. And that was the only hurdle. That's the only hurdle with Tibbs is, are you going to have the buy-in? If you have the buy-in, everything's going to be fine. If you have the buy-in, it's going to be fantastic. But it has to be buy-in across the board. Because if it's not buy-in across the board, well, then all of a sudden you have holes. And if you have holes, then you could sink through those holes and you're going to be screwed. And we saw that in year 2. And thank you for that. We saw that in year 2 when there was most certainly not full buy-in. And then what happened? Tibbs starts losing the rope. Before year 3, Jalen Brunson comes aboard. And, well, wouldn't you know it, there's the buy-in again. And I never wavered in my belief and my faith in Tibbs because in that second year, for reasons that had very little to do with what was actually going on, because there was a lot of bad shit going on with the Knicks, and much of it was Tibbs' fault. The sort of things that we're talking about this year, we had the same conversations 3 years ago. But I was just so convinced, like, this guy resurrected our franchise. And now we're going to fire him? What insanity is this? And to some extent, I still think that that talk was insane. And in retrospect, he did deserve more time to figure it out. Got more time. And I don't think there's any disputing the fact that the first Brunson team and last season's team, that magical group, were Tibbs teams to a T. Last year's group was the most Tibbs team. Maybe the most Tibbs team that he's ever had, with the exception of maybe that first Bulls season. Maybe last year's group was the most Tibbs team he's ever had. And if OG Anunoby doesn't strain that hamstring, man, I mean, I would have loved to see what that group could have done against Boston. Really would have. I would have loved to see what that group could have done against Boston, because they bought in on both ends of the floor and they did everything the way they needed to do it. And he was the right guy. He was the right guy for the team up until this year. And this year, they assembled a collective of players, which was, I mean, let's just say it, it was not a typical Tibbs group of players. And it required a coach, I think, to go outside the comfort zone that Tibbs was willing to go. Now, what I will say, and where I will push back against a lot of the things that have been said tonight, is that, and this is what, to get at the crux of your comment here, where you're like, what changed? I came around to understanding over the course of this year that this was not a Tibbs team. And that if you're not going to have a Tibbs team, then Tibbs is probably not the right coach for your team. And when I say a Tibbs team, all I don't mean like, oh, a player that, can guard the pick and roll like Mitchell Robinson, or a player that can go out and grab rebounds like Josh Hart. It has nothing to do with any specific X's and O's thing. It has to do purely with everybody, without an ounce of doubt or questioning, buying into one plan and executing that plan to the best of your abilities. Think back to Derrick Rose. Was Derrick Rose a gifted defender? I mean, shit, he wasn't a gifted defender when he was healthy, before he blew out his knee, let alone by the time he got to the Knicks and was whatever age he was. And yet, when Derrick Rose was on the floor, he never suffered defensively. Why was that? Because he bought in and he executed the game plan, and he did it without failure. Taj Gibson. I will never forget being in Madison Square Garden for Game 5 against the Atlanta Hawks, when no one could do a blessed thing. And there was Taj Gibson. And I was like, my God, he's the best player on the court right now for us. Is it because Taj Gibson is a great NBA player by that point in his career? No. He bought in fully, and he executed to the best of his ability. And that's all Tibbs ever wants. Buy in fully, execute to the best of your ability. That's it. And if you give him a team of players who does that, I swear to you, if you have even some degree of talent on that team, you're going to be very happy with the results. And there was a lot of talent on this team. Unfortunately, the buy-in, the full buy-in, the level of buy-in that you need to be successful was never there, not uniformly throughout the roster. And that's why this wasn't a Tibbs team. It has nothing to do with fucking Karl Anthony Towns, in drop coverage or whatever other bullshit people want to make it out to be. So I came to recognize that and realize that over the course of the year. The reason, and go back and listen to any podcast, live stream, anything I've done over weeks, months, you're not going to find me at any point saying, oh, unequivocally, Tom Thibodeau, yes, he is the right coach for this team moving forward. There's no doubt in my mind. You won't find me saying that, because I never did. What you will find me doing many, many times is defending this head coach, and defending him against people who make comments which make it out to be like, oh, he doesn't know any better, or he's just stubborn, or, he wants things his way. And because he wants things his way, he's not going to do things the way that they need to be done. That's all utter fucking nonsense and garbage from people who just want what they want and don't care to think about the extra couple of steps on top of it as to, okay, why? Why does it appear that someone who is quite clearly very capable of doing their job to a high degree all of a sudden looks like he's making inexplicable coaching decisions when he could see the same thing that we're all seeing? Why is that? What happened? What changed? I'll tell you what changed. The buy-in wasn't the same. And you know what? Maybe that's on Tibbs. Maybe it's incumbent upon you as a coach to get that buy-in. But knowing what I know about the man, that was not his concern. He expected it. He was not going to try to get it out of you. And if you had some kind of personal problem or whatever else that didn't have anything to do with basketball, it didn't concern him. And that's why Jalen Brunson and Josh Hart were his avatars on the court. Because Josh Hart, the silliest guy you would ever see with a microphone in front of his face, says all manner of nonsense, roommates pod, the whole thing. Think Tibbs gives a shit about any of that? No. Because when Josh Hart goes out there, he goes out and he gives it his complete effort, and he executes to the best of his abilities. Does it mean that Josh Hart always executes properly? Absolutely not. We all watched the last 3 games of the Pacers series. But if you go out there and you try to execute to the best of your abilities, and you do it more often than not, and Josh Hart, even when he goes through these little slumps, and it was unfortunate he went through that slump at the end of the series, always tried and nailed it more often than not, and you have a collective of players that all do that in unison, again, he believes you're going to win. And that's why they did a lot of winning, because they had a lot of those sorts of players. So, and then to answer your question about why I'm not upset, one, because again, the team is what it is. And I just would like to see them win a championship before I die. And I don't think that Tibbs was going to lead this group to the promised land for the reasons I just talked about. But the other reason I'm not upset is because I'm fucking tired. I am tired of sitting in front of this microphone defending this man. And I can't help myself. I can't help myself because it is what I believe is right. It is what I believe is true. And I've gotten really good over the last few years at looking in front of this here camera, reading the comment in my head, in my heart, and in my gut, wanting to react in the way that y'all know I'm capable of reacting. And I just la-di-da. It's fine. What's the difference? Right? What's the difference? Who cares? He doesn't care. Tom doesn't care. Tom doesn't know me. Tom's never going to watch this fucking show. He doesn't give a shit what people say about him. He's never cared what people say about him. That's my favorite thing about him. It's one of a dozen, but it's up there. But every time, every criticism, every time someone would either say it on a show with me or put it in a comment or in a comment to the newsletter or in an email I get, every word, not that was critical of him, but that made him out to be someone that just didn't know any better or didn't care or that the job had passed him by. Every single one of those ate me the fuck up inside like you wouldn't believe, because it is how I am built. I'm built like he's built, which is why I could never let it go, which is why, much like him, who doesn't have a fucking job today because he couldn't get out of his own way, I can't do so either. I can't convince myself, oh, this doesn't matter. No, it's the principle of the thing. But I swallowed it and I took it for years now. And now I am done. I don't have to do it anymore. Because you better fucking believe whoever they hire as this next head coach, oh boy, if he has a bad night and people are like, fire this guy, guess what I'm going to do? You want to fire him? Go right the hell ahead. Because I don't have the energy for this shit anymore. Oh, my Lord. So today is a great day for me because my watch has ended. Look, if people are happy, God bless. I hope you get the coach you want. I hope it goes swimmingly. But all I have to say about Tom Thibodeau is they don't make him like him anymore. They don't make him like him anymore. I wish they did. The older I get, the more I have just no time for anybody or any nonsense. And I just want to do the work. And I want to spend the time with the people that I want to spend the most time with, who mean the most to me. And I want to concentrate on the next task at hand. And that's all I care about. And that's all he ever cared about. And I respect him, and I respect his approach, and I respect his work ethic, and everything that man stood for. I respect it more every day as I get older, and I see what this world is really about and the challenges that you face as you try to navigate all of life's problems. And he was absolutely an inspiration to me in so many ways that I cannot possibly describe in words. That went way beyond him being the coach of the Knicks. I'm obviously thankful of what he brought to this franchise, and it means the world to me that it's helped Knicks Film School, like the whole thing. But yeah, he's just I wish there were more people out there like Tom Thibodeau. You know, but the world's going in a different direction, and that's not the sort of folks that typically end up in positions of power these days. And we get a lot of other sorts of folks who like to say what they say and think what they think, and on we go.
We go with people in power that you can all see at Fanatics Fest on June 20th to the 22nd. Don't forget to use promo code Knicks Film School 20. Tom Thibodeau, you're unemployed right now. Buy a ticket. Use Knicks Film School 20. I'm sure you can afford it, even though you don't have a paycheck coming in anytime soon. Knicks Film School 20 to join us at Fanatics Fest. Thank you, everybody, for tuning into this emergency live stream.
All right. I guess that's my cue to get out of here.
A little bit.
Listen.
I ceded the floor. You said what you said. We're good.
I saved it to the end.
You did.
And now I'm done. Now I don't ever have to talk about Tom Thibodeau again.
Sure you won't. Sure you won't. You just said the next time someone says the first 3-game losing streak were the first super chat that's like, this didn't happen under Tibbs.
All right, I'll read it and I'll move on.
Mm-hmm.
He's not the head coach anymore.
Nope.
That's all there is to it. All right. Thank you, Andrew, for producing. I did not think Andrew texted me before. He's like, I'm anticipating, or I'm planning for a 3-hour live stream. I'm like, 3-hour live stream? We're going to be in and out in like 45 minutes.
This just continues to be that I know this and you don't. Like the timing of these things and how you know how many times you've said, let's jump on for half an hour and it turns into an hour and so on and so forth. Yeah, I know this beast. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in as we now begin our offseason coverage. That includes a head coaching search.
Yeah. Thanks to Jeff. Thanks to DJ. Thanks to Jeremy. Thanks to Andrew. Thanks everybody for watching. Thanks to everybody with super chats, and we'll be back with what? What are we coming back with? Cap or no cap? I guess, right? No.
There are several things I mentioned were happening tomorrow. Casual
that's
Friday
right.
is
Yes,
technically going to
yes,
be on a
yes.
Wednesday. Then DJ and Benji will be live on 8:30 with an X's and O's. Both of these shows will be talking obviously about the head coach and giving their thoughts on the change the Knicks have made. I did an exit interview for the Knicks Pacers series with Caitlin Cooper that was going to air tonight at midnight. That will now air on Thursday as she's getting ready for the NBA Finals and we're getting ready for a head coaching change, or I guess a head coaching search. And then maybe a cap or no cap. That is for you and Jeremy to work out on the when of that happening. So we'll see. But that's your schedule for the rest of the week.
Maybe the Knicks will trade for Kevin Durant tomorrow, and we won't have to do the cap or no cap.
Again, my wife's birthday is tomorrow. I'm not doing
Happy birthday,
anything.
Ro.
Happy birthday, Ro. I love you. But please, New York Knicks, do not do anything tomorrow. Don't hire a new head coach. Close the offices tomorrow. I swear to God. Okay.
What if we get a report that the Knicks have offered Jay Wright a 10-year, $100 million contract to be the coach of the Knicks? Is that worthy of an emergency live stream?
Yes.
Can you text me about how to do that?
How to do an emergency live stream. I'm letting you know this now. If that text comes in tomorrow around noon, I resign.
That's good. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
All
For
right.
a day, probably, but it's just not happening. So
That's fine.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks everybody. We'll talk to you later. Peace out.